Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to Something to Wrestle With. Bruce Pritchard. Bruce, what's going on, man? How are you?
Well, Conrad, it's StarCast week. How in the hell else can we be?
Man, I'm fired up about it. It has just been announced that not only do we add good old JR to Sunday's lineup, but we've just started to release day passes for StarCast. So by the time you're hearing this, StarCast is in full swing. And if you thought, I don't know that I can really swing all 4 days, man, we have got you situated now at fight.tv. You can get a day pass for as little as $20. Go check it out.
No way.
I know, right? So last night, you and Eric Bischoff went toe-to-toe in the Monday Night War debate. I was the moderator, and you can go check it out right now at fight.tv. And later tonight, Bruce, your life is ruined forever. The roast of Bruce Pritchard. And man, I've got some celebrity guests from your past and some professional comedians who are ready to roast your ass.
Why do they want to roast my ass, Conrad? I'm a nice guy.
I thought it would be fun, and hopefully you think it is too. Go check it out right now if you haven't already. It's fight.tv. I should mention too that we had a little boo-boo in last week's episode that everybody corrected us on. Actually, it was you, because that's what you did.
No, I had a boo-boo. I misspoke. I even said when I talked about us, I don't know what the hell it was, but thank you to our audience who actually did the research and looked it up for me. And I'd commented that when we started it was UPN and CW. It was actually UPN and the WB network.
The WB. Remember that singing frog?
No.
What
was that again? Do that for me.
That was a singing frog. The WB.
That's fucked up, man. No, I love that. How the hell could I forget that? Well, the WB went away and merged to the CW network, and that's where I came up with CW. So thank you guys for pointing that out to us, and greatly appreciate it.
And we're coming up in San Antonio, September 15th. WWE is hammering Hell in a Cell on all their programming right now, but that's not what you need to be focused on. You need to come see Bruce and I the night before, September 15th. Tickets are available right now at brucepritchard.com. You can also get all your t-shirts, your autographs, anything you want from Bruce Pritchard, man, it's available at brucepritchard.com. And Bruce, we have just recently announced, there it is, get it. We've got a tour of Europe coming up. You can check that out at ukstw.com or, of course, at brucepritchard.com. And don't forget the rest of the shows this year. Los Angeles. How about early next year? The Royal Rumble. I don't think we've been talking about that one enough. The venue for the Royal Rumble show is like 2 blocks from the stadium. So you'll be able to walk there. This is an unbelievable location, and Stand Up Live is going to make this a once in a lifetime experience because it's a super show. Everybody who's anybody is going to be on this Royal Rumble card. And of course, Bruce and I had to be involved. Our first trip through North Carolina and so much more, all available right now at brucepritchard.com. But what we're doing today is we're talking about SummerSlam 1988. But before we do, we need to talk about something that a lot of guys listening could hear about. Getting a little lazier, a little softer, a little fatter. Ageless Male Max wants to bring the men of this country back to greatness. And now they've got a patent pending formula with an ingredient that's going to help boost your total testosterone, which is going to promote greater increases in muscle size and twice the reduction in body fat as compared to just exercise alone. So check it out right now. Get your 30-day bottle for free. All you've got to do is pay your shipping and handling. Now this is 30 days, not 10 days, not 15 days, a full 30-day supply, absolutely free. And all you've got to do is text the word SLAM. That's SLAM to 797979. Again, if you're looking to boost your total testosterone, Ageless Male Max is your hookup. Now, if your results are too intense, decrease the use, cut it back. But here's the deal. You're going to love the way you feel. Go to your text messaging and go ahead and type in the word SLAM, SLAM, and send it to 797979. And remember, message and data rates apply. And today, Bruce, we're kicking it old school. We're going to do a watch along for SummerSlam 88. Of course, we've got tons of notes here, but man, there was a lot less information available back in 88. So we thought, why not pair it with actually watching the show? So Bruce, let's give them an old countdown here. And hopefully you've got it fired up on your end. August 29th, 1988 on the WWE Network, SummerSlam 1988. Bruce, give us a countdown.
All right, guys. Now remember, let the first little WWE signature go and zero out on the very start of SummerSlam, and I'm going to count down. I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, play. And when I hit play, you hit play on your little thing there. You ready to go, Conrad?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
Here we go. In 3, 2, 1, play. And now you see the nice plane as it is just traveling along through the mountains and that nice little lake going through there. And you realize it's actually the WWF, the symbol of excellence.
What the world is watching. Dude, this is my favorite open of all. This is the one I grew up on. And that like music, it felt like it was very Top Gun. And what a cool scene we've got here. Flying high atop New York City, a look at what it looked like in 1988, of course, with the Twin Towers there. And there's the most famous arena of them all, Madison Square Garden.
And this was a big deal. We actually shot this. We got a guy to take us up on a plane and shoot that.
You mean a helicopter?
No, it was a plane.
Really?
Yeah, it was pretty cool. And the music opened with the mega, you see the mega power. No, well, those are actually the mega bucks. And referee against the mega powers.
Man, let me tell you what was funny to me is I watched this past week with Cassio Kid, just doing some show prep, getting ready. And he lost his shit laughing that the first person, when the pay-per-view started, the first person you see is fucking Virgil.
Well, yeah.
It's just hilarious to us. You know, it's not Hulk Hogan. It's not Macho Man. It's not the $1 Million Man. It's not Andre the Damn Giant. It's Virgil. And here we are. They're calling it the Mecca Arena, Madison Square Garden. It's just fun to go back and do a little people watching here. And one of the things that I saw a lot of comments about when we first mentioned we were doing this show is the horrible commentary from Superstar Billy Graham.
Oh, come on. It would have to improve a lot to be horrible.
Isn't it amazing though, that you've got some guys who are just a tremendous promo, and Superstar Billy Graham is certainly one of those. A lot of people would say, and you look at his like goatee here and you think, oh, Scott Steiner's ripping him off. But there were so many other people who were really borrowing from Superstar Billy Graham, whether it was Jesse Ventura or Hulk Hogan, or there were so many guys who he was a big influence over. And you can actually tell, you know, when you're listening to some of his old promos, who's been influenced by him. But then you put him in this spot and it's just a miss. Why do you think that is?
Because Superstar was great talking about Superstar. Superstar was not great talking about other people. And like I say, he looked great. He was the influencer, man. He influenced so many guys in the business. It's pathetic, but every big bodybuilder guy that you see and that had that rap, Superstar Billy Graham, he ripped it off from Muhammad Ali, and everybody else ripped it off from Superstar Billy Graham and just made it their own. Superstar was, like you said, man, he was a great promo guy. Vince thought he would be great on color, and he absolutely stunk. But Vince made a commitment to him, and it was my charge, make it work. God damn, work with him, get him better. But the problem was, one of the problems, a lot of times when you would be in Madison Square Garden or you'd be in Philadelphia, the only person that could talk to the talent was the director. And a lot of times the director was someone from their own place. So it was difficult to do. And that shows some strength right there by Davey Boy Smith lifting Matilda up.
Hey, so let's talk about what we're seeing right now. We've got the Rougeaus who are already in the ring, and the British Bulldogs have just come down with Matilda, as you said. And I love watching stuff from this era because so much of this is really what I grew up on. I mean, I first became introduced to wrestling after WrestleMania 4, and that was the most recent pay-per-view. And this is the very first SummerSlam. I'm sure we're going to talk a lot about that in a minute. But first, you know, I can't help myself. I absolutely love the fabulous Rougeau theme music. I want you to just scroll through your Rolodex of caricatures that you like to do and help me do the Rougeau theme song.
All American Boys?
Yeah.
Well, that was a Jimmy Hart deal, man. That was something that we came over, just All American Boys, All American. Yeah, it was.
No, come on. That was weak, Sauce. I can do better than that.
That was actually how we sang it. That was me and Jimmy sitting there and trying to sing it like that, trying to show Vince what it would sound like. And it was the Rougeaus that we put in the studio to go and sing it. That was good shit.
It was good. And it's funny because it's one of those themes I remember all these years later. And what's great is it wasn't until very recently that I understood. I mean, obviously it's a rib because they're French Canadian or whatever, but the idea of being quote unquote all American boys and then carrying the tiny flags as opposed to the giant flags. The tiny flag thing only dawned on me in most recent years that was a way to get heat, because they're saying they're all American, but they have these little baby flags.
And they're wearing the fleur-de-lis on their trunks, on their trunks and their boots.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speak with that strong French Canadian accent. So yeah, of course it was. And that was the entire point of it, that they wanted to embrace America. But yet, yeah, the little tiny flags and waving them just ad nauseum.
How fucking great is it that you guys put Matilda on a little stand? We saw that stand see right there. You've got,
dude, she's got to watch the match.
It's just hilarious to me because that WCW did that a lot for like a cameraman, and you guys, nope, doing it for the fucking dog. It's hilarious.
Well, nobody was doing it for the cameraman at this stage of the game in 1988, but she's the manager of the British Bulldogs. How else can she give the Bulldogs advice if she can't see the damn match?
That's hilarious. So as a reminder here, this goes down at the end of August, of course, Madison Square Garden. It's funny that all these years later, they're back in New York City. Of course, Barclays instead. 20,000 folks here, man. And this is the very first SummerSlam. Chat me up. Who thought of the name SummerSlam? We've told us before that Howard Finkel really gets the credit for WrestleMania, but they weren't all home run ideas. You told us last week he wanted to name SmackDown Wrestletown. So what?
No, we didn't. That was an exaggeration, Conrad. That was just a what if moment.
You fucking stop.
Purposes of our story.
Yes, thank you. God, don't let the truth get in the way of a good story. Vince never said chocolate titties either. All right, stop it. Chat me up here. Who came up with the name SummerSlam?
I remember the meeting very vividly. That Vince telling me. So I don't know who came up with it, other than sitting in a room one day and Vince goes, "We're going to do SummerSlam." I'm like, "What is SummerSlam?" And he goes, "We're going to do a summer pay-per-view. The end of the summer." He goes, "Get this, the Mega Bucks versus the Mega Powers." And I'm like, all right, that was a pretty damn cool thing, because it was Andre involved and it was Hulk involved, and it got it was interesting. It was really interesting, but I just heard it out of the blue right after WrestleMania, or right before WrestleMania, I guess it was, that this is what we're doing. This one wasn't something that was talked about a lot, right, concept wise. And what are we going to do? We're going to have this show. We're going to have this event. And I don't think that anybody really even thought, even going back to Survivor Series, is this going to be an annual deal? I don't think anybody really thought SummerSlam was going to be an annual deal. We just thought, hey, we've got this big event, going to go to the Garden, and let's have this show on pay-per-view. So in 1988, when we first started working on it, nobody thought there was going to be a SummerSlam 89, much less a SummerSlam 30 years later on pay-per-view.
Yeah, it is pretty hard to believe, how quickly time flies. I mean, I remember this show, and to think about the fact that means I'm 30 years older, it's a little weird. And this is
you're 30 years old?
I'm 30 years older than the first time I saw this, for sure. So let's talk.
How old were you when you saw this?
Seven.
Okay.
I had just gotten into wrestling earlier that summer, and we didn't get the pay-per-view, but of course I got the VHS. Madison Square Garden, man, what an important venue for you guys. Of course, the first WrestleMania is there, the first SummerSlam's there. And it's been, sort of his, and him being Vince McMahon, it's been his home arena even before he was involved in the company. How do you think Vince took it very recently when New Japan and Ring of Honor not only ran the building, but sold it out?
I think that there's a big part of him that was probably hurt pretty bad, just thinking about the tradition of his grandfather and his father promoting in the Garden and him promoting in the Garden. But at the same time, man, the Vince McMahon of today is grown a lot too, and I think he sees it as, all right, it's part of growing and it's part of progression. We'll have a new home and move on. So, now Matilda here is she's listening to the audience, as you saw that, because she's I don't know if that's Tony Chimmel that's petting her and telling her, hey, just check out the match, but she's into it. People love Matilda.
It's amazing. It's the dog, the least animated dog ever, but it's a fucking mascot.
And people loved Matilda, man. I mean, she was over like Rover. And Rover was on that other show.
Who was more influential? Elizabeth or Matilda? They did about the same.
You know what they did? They ran one and the same. And true story, when we did the manager poll, and we used to do those things every once in a while, do a vote who the best manager is, Matilda got more than anybody.
It's the best.
Well, yeah.
Of course.
It's a dog eat dog world, so you got to go to a dog for that kind of advice.
This sort of rounds out the big four here. For years and years, the WWF sort of hung their hat on four major events: the Royal Rumble in January, WrestleMania in late March, early April, SummerSlam in August, and then Survivor Series in November. And at this point, of course, Survivor Series 87 was already a thing. Royal Rumble in 88 was already a thing. And of course, WrestleMania is the franchise. Was the idea, after you guys rolled out SummerSlam, we're going to make this our fourth major event and that's it? Or when did you sort of know that, hey, we're going to have four major events?
Well, actually, I got to correct you there, Conrad, because see, we hadn't done the pay-per-view Royal Rumble yet.
Yeah, just the USA Network special.
Yeah, but we didn't even think that was going to be a pay-per-view at that time. Here at this point, we're thinking, okay, we've done WrestleMania. We're going to do a summer one, and then we'll do a winter one with Survivor Series. Rumble wasn't even in the picture yet. Rumble didn't come into the picture until after the success of SummerSlam. And Vince got to thinking, well, hell,
let's do another one.
Let's do another one. Yeah. So then we've got four. We've got four tent poles then. Wasn't even in the discussion yet. That's how crazy when you think about it. Now, Vince probably was thinking this whole time, that he's going to have 4 or 5. I'll do one every month. And everybody would think he was absolutely crazy. But the model I've stated so many times before, it was all about house shows, and it was all about going to the local towns, and that's where you made your money.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because this is such a foreign concept to think about now, but there was no Raw here. There is no SmackDown. All you've got is Primetime Wrestling and Wrestling Challenge. And those shows are mostly, I know the phrase isn't polite, but it's jobber matches, it's squash matches, it's enhancement talent versus name talent, and then lots of promos, which is definitely the formula. So this was really the only way to see competitive matches unless you went out to a house show. And this is years before the business sort of became what it is now, like where house shows are maybe, I don't know, the 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th most important thing the company does now. It was number one back then from a revenue standpoint, right?
That was the entire model of the company. And it was all about producing house shows and doing live events. And that's where you got the return on your investment. The television show was a 1-hour commercial to promote everything else.
We've talked about this. It's probably been 2 years since we talked about this. Well, I guess we have been doing it 2 years now, but you've sort of made, note of the fact, man, Dynamite Kid was the man. If you haven't watched this, you need to go back and see it, just because we see so little Dynamite on these podcasts, but you get to really appreciate what a performer he was. But you've mentioned before that the circus, believe it or not, was actually something that Vince used almost as a barometer for how business was, because in theory, and this is a stretch here, but you got to, listen all the way through, they're a live event business. So they're taking sort of their show on the road and they're trying to sell tickets. And then when you go to the event, they're going to try to sell you swag, merchandise and gimmicks and things like that. And that really is what the business was. Now, of course, we know Barnum and Bailey, not even a thing anymore, which is hard to imagine here in America.
So sad.
It is weird that it's gone because it was, and I know that they were cruel to animals and I get all that, but I'm saying as a kid, it was a big deal to go to the circus. So that's what I'm sort of referencing here. Well, their model didn't really change. Like that circus model, even up until the end, was really based on, hey, you got to come out and see it. It's a live event. It's an attraction. Whereas WWE has just really changed everything with television, with pay-per-view, with licensing, with television rights. And there's just so many different opportunities. When do you think Vince realized, I mean, is there a conversation or a moment in time where you remember there being a bit of a paradigm shift with Vince? Like the house shows are important, but they're not the only thing. Cause right here, they're really the number one thing. And you start to see the rise of pay-per-view buys. And obviously he's tinkered with some action figures here and there. Those have done well, but when do you remember house shows becoming less and less of a priority because he saw gold in other areas?
Priority may be the wrong term, but as far as revenue for the company, when we started getting big television rights, that's when it changed. And with the big television rights and also with the competition from WCW, that we realized, man, we've got to change the product and we have to be able to compete. We've got to do it on television. We're getting paid for that. In addition to the house, you're just not getting the house show. You're now getting a television rights fee. That's when it really started to change. And it's funny when you talk about even the comparisons with the circus. In later years, the circus started stealing out of our book, where it became two different events at the circus where you could get there early and it's like a meet and greet. You could go and pet the animals and get up close with the animals and the clowns. And they had, especially when they would run the big stadiums, half of the stadium was a meet and greet with the stars and get to ride the elephants and get close to the lions and the tigers and bears and see all the clowns. Oh my. Yeah. That's how they kept their business going even longer than it probably should have gone. But we looked at, you talk about live events, man, we looked at concerts, but yeah, the circus, that was a big one for us that we used to compare because it was the same audience that, that were paying the same money to come and see us.
Man, they're having a heck of a match here. This is sort of old school. I mean, when was the last time you saw a move like that?
The abdominal stretch?
Yeah, but the abdominal stretch used to be just
too long.
I mean, what happened to it?
Well, I think that for a lot of respects, man, that used to be a finisher. Wilbur Snyder, man, that was his finish. When he locked in the abdominal stretch, man, the match was over. And then guys started using it kind of as a rest hold and to catch their breath in the middle of a match. And the damn thing hurts when put on properly. And then guys just started using it as a spot.
A rest spot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what the company is doing on your way in here. I mean, you guys are on fire here, and you probably wouldn't see this level of business really for another 10 years until you get to 1998, I guess. But you guys just ran like less than a month before this, the stadium in Milwaukee, the Milwaukee County Stadium, and you hosted WrestleFest 1988. Now, I'm mentioning this because it was a major show, but as you said, it wasn't a pay-per-view. Instead, this was taped and went straight to VHS. So you guys were certainly trying some different things here, where I assume the cost of producing a video cassette was much less than producing a pay-per-view.
Not really. You didn't have the satellite time that you didn't have to pay for to be able to distribute the damn thing live, but you still had the cost of bringing in the cameras, but you didn't have the cost of as many production people. It was a bare knuckles crew, and we just had cameras, and we'd send a director to direct the cameras, and everything was on ISO so they could cut it later, but there wasn't that attention to running a show. It was still just a big house show that was being recorded.
25,866 fans are there. They had a couple of dark matches on that one. Bossman over Scott Casey, Brutus Barber over Hercules. By the way, can you believe that Brutus the fucking Barber Beefcake is at Starcast this weekend?
Well, yeah, because it's all about big talent, big names.
My God. The Rougeau boys beat the Killer Bees. Bad News Brown, believe it or not, pinned Bret Hart. Hacksaw Jim Duggan beat Honky Tonk Man by DQ. Of course, Jimmy Hart was interfering there. Powers of Pain beat the Bolsheviks. Jimmy Neidhart beat Lanny Poffo. Randy Savage beat Ted DiBiase and retained his world title. Rick Rude and Jake Roberts went to a double countout. King Haku beat Sam Houston. Ultimate Warrior beat Bobby Heenan in a weasel suit match. Demolition beat the British Bulldogs to retain the World Tag Team titles. Dino Bravo beat Ken Patera, main event anywhere in the world. And your real main event, Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant in a cage match. Man, that's still a big deal. You know, it's funny because I think a lot of people think about Hogan and Andre and really think about WrestleMania 3, but you had, you know, the main event, which we've covered extensively, the match at WrestleMania 4, WrestleFest and here. And then of course, Survivor Series, they were on opposite sides. These guys have been, I mean, all time, where do you rank Andre as Hogan's opponent? You know, like all time Hogan opponents, Macho Man's got to be in the conversation. There's probably some others. Where's Andre for you?
I've always said Andre was number one.
Wow.
Because Andre, even going back before, you know, Hulk Hogan was a babyface, Hulk and Andre were able to go in and headline at the New Orleans Superdome, at Shea Stadium in Japan, wherever they went. That was an attraction even then. That was a huge attraction for the local markets, the local promoters.
A stadium show like that, what challenges does that represent besides weather?
Weather's the biggest one. Really, it's no different than any other show. You go in and, you know, you got your show and you knock it out. This was something that the Brewers had brought to us, and they wanted something in their stadium. It was something different. So we got a great deal on it. We partnered with the Brewers, and they plugged the living shit out of it, all the way through, you know, the summer. So it was good, and it was a good partnership. We decided when we saw how tickets were going, well, we might as well record the damn thing and make not a pay-per-view, make a video out of it. So
chat me up. You know, you've got the threat of rain, of course. You're going to have to worry about shooting around the sun. That's obviously going to throw off some of your lighting. The sound isn't going to be there for the guys in the ring as much because it just goes up into space. There's no top on the thing. And obviously, you know, it's not air conditioned, so it's probably hotter for the guys. Are guys sort of bitching and moaning a little bit about working a stadium show, or not so much?
Not when they see 25,000 people, no.
There you go.
It's easy to do when there's a lot of people there.
You know, I've watched enough wrestling to know that I feel like, the end is near here.
Well, by God, now that you see that big press slam coming, it's gotta be soon.
Dude, what a maneuver that was. A press slam, like rocket launcher maneuver.
Into the flying headbutt.
Dynamite's making the cover, but he's saying, hey, we're not the legal man. This isn't going to work.
Well, no, the damn bell's rung.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Dude, the time limit has expired on this matchup.
Oh my goodness. What are we going to do?
Well, Conrad, there's only one thing you can do. That's a time limit draw. That means there is no winner, or, well, both guys are winners.
I don't think anybody had that pegged, but, I wish we could have put some money on that. You know, a lot of people ask us for our advice and they want to know who's going to win here, who's going to win there. Well, you got to go check out MyBookie. I always tell everybody to bet with MyBookie, and trust me, guys, this is the best bet this season. Football is right around the corner, and this is the place where you want to lay all your action. They've been in business for years. They've got great reviews online. Their mobile site, super easy to use, and they've got live in-game betting. So you don't have to place it before kickoff. You're good. And they've got tons of player perks, maybe the most in the business. You can even bet on the over under and even fantasy points. Now that's my favorite. So fantasy points and being something you can bet on is a new wrinkle in the gaming world. So Lay down some cash and win big today. And when you win, they will pay. Tell them about our special offer today, Bruce.
Yeah, but even better than that, because I love my bookie. If you join right now, my bookie will match your deposit dollar for dollar. All you got to do is use the promo code WRESTLE to activate the offer. Visit my bookie online today. That's my bookie, MYBOOKIE. Use our promo code WRESTLE, and whatever deposit you put in, my bookie is going to match it dollar for dollar. Okay, don't forget our code WRESTLE. You play, you win, you get paid.
Can't recommend them enough. My friends and I used them last year. And how about, I feel like Outlaw Ron Bass might be a bookie here. He's dragging Brutus the fucking Barber Beefcake around by his bullwhip. And this is something I remember like it was yesterday. And I can't wait to talk about this because we've often alluded to this, but we've never actually seen it on the show like this. This is one of the more famous angles of 1988, is it not?
You better believe it. And it was something that people talked about for a long, long time. Bass getting the spur in his hand there, and now it's time to go to cutting on the barber. It's going to give the barber a different kind of head cut, if you will.
It's so fun to me now that, you know, I'm still a dumbass for wrestling, but now that I know a little more, you can just plainly see where he, you know, roll tide. Anyway, this is, the spur across the forehead. Brutus the fucking Barber Beefcake
Censored
is bleeding. And this is the best part. You guys put the giant red X over, and I know you laugh because you think it's silly, but as the human psychology behind this is incredible because it makes you want to pay more attention. Like you may have been not really paying that much attention before, but now you find yourself not only wanting to watch it, but trying to look around the X like, what don't they want me to see? It's so genius.
Absolutely. And also, you know, the strategic, you make sure that you're getting the shots of the bloodied head so you can see, but then it goes behind the X and there's a little more blood. Then there's behind the X. And it is that I want to see this so bad, but we're protecting you. We're protecting you and your children at home from having to witness the carnage that's taking place here.
Of course, the locker room's empty in here. I should mention here that, they're using this as a way to explain that Brutus the fucking Barber Beefcake is not going to be here. He, of course, was supposed to be taking on the Honky Tonk Man for the Intercontinental title, but they've used this as a way to explain that he is not going to be challenging for that belt. So he's no-showed here. Chat me up about, that first match. Of course, we just mentioned it went to a 20-minute time limit draw. Meltzer gave it 2.5 stars. I liked it. You know, maybe that's the old school in me, but I think it's better than 2.5 stars. What say you?
I did too, because the guys were great workers. Both teams were great workers, and they were able to go out and tell a hell of a story. And I thought that the match itself was excellent. There were no lulls, and they told a good story.
Right now we've got, the man of the hour, Bad News Brown, in the ring here. He's going to be taking on Ken Patera. And I got to tell you, I came along at a time when Ken Patera was wrapping up. I'm not a Ken Patera guy. Does that make me a bad person?
Yes, that makes you a bad person. I remember when Ken Patera first broke into the business with Vern Gagne, and they sent him down to Texas to learn the ropes. And Ken was a babyface because he was an Olympian and what have you. And he was doing the best to learn the business. But when Ken Patera bleached his hair blonde and became a heel and turned his back on America, I thought he was one of the best heels ever in the business.
He'd always been a heel in the WWF. I mean, with his big run with the blonde hair and all that, as you said, but now he's here doing the brown haired routine. And this is post prison stint. And he's trying to, talk us through the silliness of that angle.
Well, the idea was the man had paid his debt to society. He had come out, and we just told the story, that his manager, Bobby Heenan, had forgotten all about him and not taking care of him while he was away and not taking care of his family. And he came back to exalt revenge on Heenan. And the idea was that the audience could get behind it and want to help him. I still think Kenny was a better heel.
No doubt. What was his relationship like with Vince McMahon?
They had hot and cold relationship over the years, and Vince took care of his family when he was away doing his time, made sure that they were taken care of during that time. So it was weird, but Kenny had, they just would go back and forth sometimes. And it was, Ken's a real independent guy, very outspoken. I always considered him a friend, and thank God I always got along with him. Wouldn't want to be on his bad side. And it just, Ken wanted to do what Ken wanted to do, and Ken wanted it to be, 1985 all over again when he was on top of the world.
We should mention here that the reason Ken wound up going to prison is he had an incident at a McDonald's, and then when the police came, he put up quite a fight, and it became a whole situation. So chat me up when he's back here. Is anybody ribbing him about that? Is it still a topic of conversation? I mean, it's not often that one of the boys goes to prison while he's an active wrestler. Of course, there's been stories of guys who have gone on to have great fame in wrestling, where before their wrestling life started, maybe they got in a little bit of trouble, but in the middle of your run, going to prison and then coming back, kind of unheard of.
Yeah. And I also don't think that that's something you rib somebody about.
Sure.
Because he lost a lot of years of his life in prison, and that wasn't something that he found very funny. So I don't know of anybody that ever would have ribbed him about that. Plus, Ken was the kind of guy that not a lot of guys are going to want to rib, because you don't want to piss him off. It was an unfortunate situation, man. They were hungry, went to McDonald's in Waukesha, Wisconsin. The staff locked the door on them, and to retaliate, they threw a giant rock through the window, and they called the cops saying, hey, there's this big blonde guy and a big Japanese guy. Described them as wrestlers, and cops knew where the wrestlers stayed, went and paid them a visit, and it just got bad from there. But at this point, Kenny had paid his time, done his service, and was back, and we were trying to get him going here. He had a name, but it just, for whatever reason, just did not click and didn't connect with the audience.
This match is going to get a 1.25 stars out of Dave Meltzer here. Two legit badasses here, though. Bad News, of course, had an extensive judo background, and Ken Patera was once upon a time considered to be one of the strongest men in the world. You ever see any Ken's real life feats of strength?
Yeah, I saw Ken's, lifts in the Olympics and everything in 1972, and he came right after that to Texas. So one of the things, the big deal with Ken Patera was we would do weightlifting with him back in the day in the middle of the ring. And you think about it, which I learned this at a very early age and brought it up on the Dino Bravo lift, was when you put weights in a wrestling ring and things like that, that adds so much weight because your base is giving. That the wrestling ring, it gives and it absorbs that weight. So when you're trying to press it and you're moving it, that ring is moving as well. So you're not on a steady base trying to lift weight. So it's a shitload harder to try and do that in a ring. And that's why guys always tried to do it on a solid basis. But, yeah, Ken was badass, man. I saw him in the Olympics, and just always, he's a world-class athlete, man. It takes a lot to get to the Olympics.
Of course, we know in our first match, just a couple of months after this show, there would be a real physical altercation with Dynamite Kid and the Rougeaus. We've covered that to death, though. You ever see Ken Patera or Bad News Brown ever have to throw hands?
I saw it, which we talked about recently with Bad News and the Cuban Assassin, but there weren't any blows thrown, and there were some chairs thrown. But man, Bad News is another guy that people there was respect there. Alan wasn't an asshole, man. He was respectful to everybody, and all he asked was respect in return. So you kind of knew there were some guys that didn't want to fuck around, didn't want to play haha. And Alan Quage was one of those guys. He didn't want to play haha. He was there to make money and go home and take care of his family.
We should mention that about a month prior to this show, the wrestling world was shocked. Bruiser Brody was brutally murdered in Puerto Rico by Jose Gonzalez, who wrestled as Invader #1. And that entire story, I hate to just keep plugging here, but that entire story is told in a new documentary that Viceland put together, Dark Side of the Ring. And it was originally slated to debut in the fall of this year. I think it may have been pushed back into next year, but for those in attendance at StarCast, they can actually screen the movie and see it before anybody else. And you and I were lucky enough to see it in January of this year, a very rough cut. It's narrated by,
well, let's go back to the match here real quick. Cause you got to watch this finish here with Bad News Brown, and the kick that he does, this savate kick, is something that I credit my brother Tom and Chris Adams for really bringing to the States and making famous, and their Bad News pins him. But Alan did it well as he was a judo champion. So of course, karate men always win. But you talk about the whole Bruiser Brody biopic, I guess is one docudrama.
Docudrama is the term. Yeah. That's what they like to call it.
Yeah. I thought it was very well done, and it's interesting piece. And for everybody coming to StarCast, that's one that I would put on the list to make sure and see.
We'll come back to Brody. Take a look at this. Now, you've told us before that you guys,
Hulk Hogan. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
When would this have been shot? The day before? The day of?
No, this day of, man.
And so, these promos are some of my favorite memories as a kid, old Hulk Hogan promos. And of course, people online like to joke that him and Macho Man had to be on just copious amounts of cocaine to pull this off. Chat me up though. The way you guys shot this, and you can see sort of the corners, and you can see like Mean Gene's hand down here. This is before you guys were calling it green screen. Tell everybody what you called it here.
This is Ultimat. This was the cream of the crop. This was the best of the best. The green screen, which they called chroma key, which they used for like the weatherman in your newsstands. This was Ultimat, man. This was the cleanest you could get back in the day. And you can still see it had a lot of things to do. And I can tell this is a blue one because you can see the blue outline of Hulk's back, brother.
Yeah. It's funny because when I see this, I think of The Last Dragon. I think of Bruce Leroy, because he's got that glow in that one part of the movie. And like, when you're watching these up close, you're like, wow, let's take a look.
Yeah, no shit, man. But it was good stuff, and it was state of the art.
We should mention that they were teasing their secret weapon here. And we of course know what that's going to be on the way here for weeks now. We've covered this a lot. We've had Hogan promos where he's talking about the teeny weeny itsy bitsy yellow polka dot bikini or whatever. Here comes Ravishing Rick Rude, not his best robe ever, but what a great gimmick this was. And I think this is when Rude was really hitting his stride. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah. Rick was, starting to get over and starting to feel it. And more importantly, I think Vince was starting to feel it with Rude. So he was getting in. Look at that old camera, man, with the flash on top, pocket camera. Holy cow.
Yeah. You would see Rude really step his game up from here on out. I think 88 is sort of his breakout year for me. 89 and 90 were the 2 years I appreciated, his WWF run the most though. 89 of course is when he's going to be working with Ultimate Warrior. 90, they'll be working instead of the Intercontinental title for the world title. And look at all the chicks, man. Can't wait to get a picture of Ravishing Rick Rude.
Damn right. And that was one of the things that just worked so well because it was the shoot. They all were, man. The cameras went off. They all wanted to get their glimpse of the Ravishing one.
Well, and a lot of this is just the presentation, presentation is everything. He's got JYD on his trunks there. The hip swivel thing, man, he got it over. A lot of guys have tried to copy this since. I don't know that anybody has been as effective with it as the original.
No, I think that Rude's man, of course, I wouldn't have another man's face on my crotchal area.
Will you put your own face on your crotchal area like Scott
I
Steiner?
would put my own face, but not somebody else's face.
So you'd suck your own.
Well, if it had to be done.
Here comes JYD. Do you have a JYD impersonation? I feel like you should have one of those.
No, Stagger Lee. No, I don't have a good JYD one. God, of all the years being with JYD, I should have a good JYD one. But you talk about guys that were on top of the business and couldn't be touched. Man, JYD was like printing money in the Mid-South back in the day. And that sumbitch just had so much charisma and so much just oomph that there's another one that often imitated will never be duplicated.
It is amazing when you think about how little he had to do to just get people riled up. He just had this innate charisma about him, did he not?
Yeah, he did, man. He walked out and he had everybody with him. This is where I would get in the arguments with Bill Watts, where Bill will talk about a black baby face. I said, no, he's just a baby face.
Right.
Everybody loves him. He is the man. It's like this son of a bitch will walk out and everybody would go nuts, from the oldest, just grandfather in the arena to the mom with her little baby and her 3-year-old going absolutely nuts, just wanting to dance and watch JYD because he was real and they believed in him.
What was Vince's take on JYD? You know, while Dog was a bigger, thicker man, he was not necessarily this body Adonis that, you know, McMahon sort of fell in love with at different times for his baby faces. What was his relationship like with Dog, and what did he think of Dog?
He loved Dog, and when Dog came in, Dog did have that body, and he didn't have the belly that he's got, you know, here in 1988. But when Dog went up there, Dog was ripped up and looked great. You know, then he kind of let himself go a little bit and became a little slower, and he got the paunch, and that's where when his career started going downhill a little bit. And it was, you know, when Dog was in shape, good God, he looked like a Greek god. So it just, you know, this was during a time that he wasn't taking the best care of himself.
This match gets a dud rating in the Observer. Chat me up about, the airbrush tights of Ravishing Rick Rude. Do you remember anybody ever having a problem with it? Was everybody always cool? I mean, does he give them a heads up beforehand, or they just find out and just got a deal?
No, what's there to have a problem with?
Well, you know, as you said, I don't know that I want another man's face on my crotch. Well, if you're going to be weird and homophobic like that, I assume that some of the guys maybe at some point too.
No, I never heard a problem, man. That was Rick's gimmick, and that was something that he did. And I don't think that he ever did anything that was over the top. But to that point, I think that you could play into that with
Sure
what he does here at the end with Cheryl, and having your wife's picture on his crotchal area. Now that's something that may piss me off a little bit.
And that was tremendous. You know, obviously the seed had been sown there for a feud with Jake and Root. Check out this lady walking all the way down the stairs, getting as close as she can to take a picture. It's amazing how over Rick Rude was, man.
Well, hell yeah. Yeah. Rick was over and Dog was over, man. This was one of those, and these guys had also worked together previously. I want to say they had a short little stint in either Florida or the Mid-South, but they worked well together and liked each other. So that always helps as well. Now, you remember, Conrad, we did the SummerSlam in the Garden, and they had a different hard camera shot.
Yep. 98, 10 years later.
Yeah. 10 years later. Where here we're shooting into the bowls. We're shooting into the long end of Madison Square Garden, and the entrance is from the hard camera. It's to the left. So that was something that we did early on, and why we went to, I do know why, because he wanted the entrance, that big entrance to be seen. I don't know why we switched. later on in later years to go and see that big gaping hole in the middle of your hard camera shot.
That's an easy transition there. I'm going to let that one go. Let's talk about Bruiser Brody again for a minute, though, because this has got to be the talk of the business just a month later. I mean, we talked about how unusual it was for Ken Patera to be a guy who went to prison and came back in the middle of his wrestling career. But wow, one of the boys being murdered in the locker room. What was everybody talking about here in New York?
You know, it was just unheard of. And I think that everybody was wondering what the hell was going to come of it and what was going to happen to Jose Gonzalez, who, you know, that was the guy that did it. And there you see Cheryl Roberts come out. Holy cow. But, man, it was just sad and people thinking what's going to happen next. When was the last time you saw Jake move like that?
It's been a long time. You know, he might be moving that way now, though, thanks to DDPY.
This is true. But Jake was on fire here, man. And oh my God.
How believable was that? How hot was the crowd for that?
Well, here's the thing. They believed it because Jake believed it. And he came in and he let you know that he was pissed off and there wasn't anybody in there that couldn't feel that heat coming from Jake. And that's the difference in a pro. He wasn't playing. He wasn't going through the motions. He was pissed. And you knew it.
Chat me up. Bruiser Brody. Lots of people in these documentaries that have come out, especially the one from High Spots, talks about how they all sort of thought, and Dave Meltzer especially thought eventually Brody and Vince might have gotten together. They did try to negotiate a few times, allegedly, but nothing ever came of it. But maybe people who were close to Brody thought, well, he always thought there'd be a chance to do it later. And of course, you know, he was murdered and that never happened. And I think even the legend is that once he was working for the WWF, the McMahons gave him the name, Senior gave him the name Bruiser Brody. Is that right?
Well, that part, yeah, that's true. That's what I'd always heard. But, you know, when I got there was no talk of Bruiser Brody coming in ever. And Vince wasn't, you know, from the time I was there from April 1987, Vince was never really high on Frank coming in.
Why do you think that was? He had a reputation as a rebel, a renegade.
Yeah, Brody definitely did. He did his own thing and he had a reputation for walking out when things didn't go his way. And that wasn't something that Vince liked to tolerate and put up with. And if a guy had that, he needed to see them display some loyalty and some professionalism elsewhere before he was going to be ready to bring him in. Because there's just a honky tonk man on here right now. I got greatest Intercontinental Champion, greatest singer, greatest dancer, greatest wrestler, greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time, baby.
You know, I feel like, we've had a lot of fun with the character Brutus the fucking Barber Beefcake because he beat the undefeated streak of Mr. Perfect. And that was really what sort of got me down that path. But the Honky Tonk Man, despite similar attributes to Brutus, as far as being super over and getting the character over so strong and having such a strong reaction, I feel like he sort of gets glossed over a lot. Why do you think that is? Do you think it's because because the gimmick was hokey, or because he's alienated himself from some of the Office? Because he does. I mean, the dude is white hot as a heel here. People fucking hate him, but I don't think people today really talk about him as much. Is it the shoot interviews that he's done that's maybe hurt the perception of him? What is it about that?
I don't know. I can't say I've ever seen any of his shoot interviews, so I don't know. But Honky Tonk Man back in the day, good God, he was red hot and he had legitimate heat, but he was able, you know, he knew how to work it. He knew how to go out and he had money drawing heat. So can't knock him. Oh God, I hope they're going to sing, Conrad. I hope they're going to sing.
Are you going to do this for us, you think?
Well, if Nikolai takes the thing, I will definitely sing along with him because it's only out of respect.
How about Slick as a manager for them? How fucking weird is this?
the doctor of style, if you will, baby. Gotta love Slickster. He's a
Shit.
jive soul bro.
Show a little respect for Comrade Volkov,
That's right.
or
You
Koloff,
got
rather.
to. Volkov. My eat good to crotch. I love eating crotch at the page cases. La-di-da. Okay. That's how they end it. La-di-da.
What a look here. And this really, if we're honest, this is you guys ripping off the Road Warriors, not Demolition.
No, this is those guys ripping off the Road Warriors. Now, see, that's the part I don't understand. These guys were a rip off of the Road Warriors.
100%. The hair, the face paint, everything.
Yeah. Yeah, these are just some guys.
Black tights, red letters down the side, face paint, crazy mohawks, even the hairstyle. Even the reverse mohawk thing. This is 100% rip off of the Road Warriors.
Yeah, and this was something that these guys are coming straight in from Crockett at the time, and had been unhappy there. They were in the middle of a program with the Road Warriors before they came in. But I'll tell you, during this match, I remember watching this match, and I'm Brother Love, and I'm looking out there, and I'm nervous as shit. Peeking through the curtain, and Pat Patterson comes by and says, "Good luck, Brucey." And Vince McMahon looks at Pat and he says, "Patrick, that's not Bruce, that's Brother Love." And gave me a little speech that I'll never ever forget.
Let's hear it.
Vince looks out the curtain and says, "See that? That's Madison Square Garden, the most famous arena in the world. 18,000 people." And he turns back, he looks at Gorilla Monsoon and says, Gino, how many watching on pay-per-view?" Monsoon, without even hesitating, 5 million. 5 million watching on pay-per-view live. You know what? He holds out his hand, he points his hand, he goes, "You know what? You own every one of them. Right here in the palm of your hand, you own every one of them. So fuck them. Go on out there and own them." And I was absolutely just that. If I wasn't scared before, now I was terrified. This was my first time going out, man, and I remember watching this match at the curtain, just thinking I'm going to be out there shortly, and hoping that I didn't turn my white pants brown.
I don't know why that's funny to me, but it is.
Well, I was trying to think of a song, a turning something, and I couldn't think of it. So I just went with the lyric anyway. Oh, how I turned my white pants brown. Yeah. Well, no, they're not exact ripoffs of the Road Warriors. So he's got different colors hairs.
Different color hairs?
Yeah. He's got brown hairs on one side and black hairs on the other side. You know, for two like really mean looking sumbitches, Warlord and Barbarian, I don't think you could find two nicer guys. Same thing. Actually, same thing with Big Jim and Nikolai too. But for some of the nastiest looking sumbitches in the world, they're just some of the nicest people you ever want to meet.
I don't know why, but that's funny to me.
What's that? What's funny to you?
I don't know.
You met Nikolai. He was nice.
No, I'm not arguing that. I can't argue that. We should mention that, end of July, Bam Bam Bigelow leaves the company, goes to the NWA. Why do you think that is? Like, why was Bam Bam not a right fit here? It feels like with this cast of characters, he'd have been a natural fit.
I think that Bam Bam just saw, more for his character. Bam Bam wanted to be the man and had been fed that in his head from day one. He also had Larry Sharp in his ear that, was constantly looking to book him elsewhere. So it just, he was unhappy, and Vince didn't want the unhappy guy around him.
Didn't want the unhappy guy around him.
Yep.
Well, speaking of unhappy, Terry Taylor is coming in at the end of July. Not talked about a lot. He actually debuts in a tag team with Sam Houston. He of course turns on Houston and becomes a heel and briefly wrestles as terrible Terry Taylor. It's apropos. And then you guys reach into the famous box of gimmicks and pull out the legendary Red Rooster. Chat me up about old terrible Terry Taylor.
Well, that was just a descriptor, I think, more than anything. The terrible part. No, the Red Rooster was always the gimmick. Bring Terry in as kind of an underneath baby face, and then have Bobby Heenan say that he can turn anybody into a star and take Terry under his wing, which then fed into the Brooklyn Brawler whole scenario as well. But he was going to be the Red Rooster, and be a cocky little fucker.
A cocky little fucker. There's apparently another cocky little fucker around this time because Mean Gene Okerlund popped off with Vince. They had a bunch of blow-ups, one even at the Slammy Awards, that was so bad that Gene quit for a day. This, of course, is coming to us from the Observer, but chat me up. Do you remember any of these famous Mean Gene, Vince McMahon blow-ups? What were they about? Take us back.
No shit, man. Gene would always get hot and quit for a day. I don't know that he ever actually quit to Vince, but he would quit to the bar and let everybody know, I've had it. I'm done. I'm out of here. Not going to take this shit anymore. And then Vince would come in. How you doing, Vince? What are we doing tomorrow? So, back in, and especially back during this time, things were a little wilder and things were a little bit more open. So guys would have arguments, and that happened every day. It was just disagreements. The stuff at the Slammy Awards was more of so many cooks in the kitchen, so many chiefs that everybody was telling everybody what to do. You had Ebersol there and his group, and then Vince and us, and it just was, it wasn't a well-oiled machine. It's amazing that huge production got on the air the way that it did, but it worked. It all worked. And those were just things that happened, man. Guys blow up, and I can't tell you how many times I quit in the bar. Fuck it. I'm done. Not coming tomorrow. I'm out.
Chat me up here about Baron Von Raschke. We haven't talked about him very often. He's the manager here, and he's gone shortly after this. What happened?
Von Raschke was actually my idea because I think that he was looking to come in, and I thought he would complement these guys well because they needed a babyface promo, and Raschke cut a hell of a just heel babyface promo. So bring in the Baron. He was a new face, somebody different, and let him cut their promos, put the face paint and the hood on him. And that's what he wore as Baron Von Raschke. So those that knew, and those that didn't, he was the Baron.
What did Vince think about the Baron?
Loved him personally. He didn't think that he added anything to the act at all.
Is this push here for the Powers of Pain, is this really in response to the inability to sign the Road Warriors? Because allegedly the Road Warriors had met with Vince, but couldn't get a guarantee. So they opted for the guaranteed money with Crockett.
Yeah. Timing wise, that was about right. He was actually negotiating with both. And when one didn't come, took the other.
Of course, next up is a pretty big moment for you. We're going to see the Brother Love show on pay-per-view in just a minute. And you sort of told the story of the guys maybe trying to get in your head a little bit. When we're seeing this on the network, is this, is there an intermission right before you come out? Cause they need a little time to set all this up. Do they not?
There was, I think we just got that damn carpet in the ring and went. We had rehearsed it during the day. And so that was the whole ring crew. As soon as those guys got out, now watch, I'm about to trip and almost bust my ass as I come through here, and they don't take it. Thank God. But when I did the turn, there's a little step up there. Either they edited it out or completely missed it, and I thought I was going flat on my face. And right now, my asshole is about as tight and puckered as one could possibly be. I mean, it's a good-looking ass. I'm gonna
leave that alone for a minute. The spotlight treatment here hadn't been done before, has it?
No, it was red or pink spotlights that bathed me in pink, and this was long before lighting treatments and all this other crap. So this was a big deal as to how we were going to present the Brother Love show.
How nervous are you right now?
I love you. I'm scared to death. Absolutely. I mean, it's Madison Square Garden, first of all.
And how old are you here?
I'm 25 here.
That's the thing that gets me is, you're one of those guys who, as this character, I know you're 25, but you could pass for 40 or 45. I joked with my friends the other day that there's a handful of guys in wrestling who've looked the same age forever. Like, we almost imagine Mean Gene Okerlund, like in second grade in a little tuxedo, giving a book report, like
with a mustache and bald.
Yeah. And so Mean Gene, Arn Anderson, JJ Dillon, like those guys looked 55 when they were 25. And now that they're 75, they look 55. And you, for whatever reason here, when I watched it then, and even when I watch it now, I think, he's 40 something, but you're 20 fucking 5. And I think when you think about the idea that you're 25 and this is the infancy of pay-per-view and it's sold out Madison Square Garden and you're the first to have a lighting treatment and you're in this character and you've got to pull all this off. A lot of pressure for a 25-year-old.
And I'm also responsible for the production that night. So on top of that, had a few things going on there, and looking at it, not knowing that Duggan was going to be my guest until the very last minute, because we had so many different things in the work from Jessica Hahn.
We'll talk about that in a minute. Keep going with your story about the pressure though.
Oh no, it just, I didn't know. I didn't have time to prepare. And I'm just thinking, I've got to get through this, and praying that everybody is going to be happy at the end of the day, and that I don't break my neck getting out of the ring.
You guys had teased building up to this that it was going to be a huge announcement, that you were going to have a very special guest. This was hyped up to where you thought it was going to be a major happening, and it almost was. We've talked about this a little bit before, but let's expound on it since we're finally here.
Well, the idea at the time was WWE. Vince was negotiating with Ric Flair, and this was going to be the debut of the Nature Boy Ric Flair into the WWF. So it was going to be on the Brother Love show. We were going to announce that Ric Flair had joined and that he was here now. And that didn't, it just kept falling through, but it was close, then it wasn't close, then it was close, then it wasn't close. And it ended up not happening. So Duggan had been gone for a little while, and this was kind of Duggan's return too. So it was, Vince was like, we'll do Duggan.
Fuck, what a disappointment though. After you've promised, and you know what the real deal is, of course, us fans, we didn't know, but how close do you think the Flair thing got?
It was fairly close. It was fairly close. For me, I think that and I wasn't disappointed. I was happy to be on. It was, my biggest disappointment was not getting Jessica Hahn, because that would have got mainstream news and mainstream press everywhere. Then the thought of having Flair, that was exciting because it was something brand new and I liked Rick. The letdown was, Hack had already been here before, but at the same time, one of the things that at least calmed me down somewhat in here, I'd known Duggan for years and I'd worked with Duggan for years. So at least I was comfortable with Jim.
Yeah, with Jessica Hahn, you would have been on pay-per-view with a variable. You don't know what to expect.
Right. And even with Flair, I'd known Rick since 1981 or whatever it was. And there was still, I think I still would have been psyched out. So Duggan, the great part about having Duggan on there was a comfort. I trusted him. I knew him. And we had done stuff together before. So that was good. But at the same time, for me, I just am scared to death here. And you think about, you can't rest and think about what could have been, what should have been type thing.
Well, let's play that game for a minute though. Let's do the what if gimmick. What if Flair had come in here? What would the plans have been? I mean, I think most people assume he's arguably the second biggest star, maybe third in the business, the top three being Hulk Hogan, Macho Man, and Ric Flair. And you guys are in the process of making Macho here in this 88 run. What would the plans have been for Flair had he come in here, in your opinion?
It was never discussed with me. I think that Rick probably would have been put right into the title picture right away. But at the same time, Vince had in his head, he was going to go with Hulk and Savage at WrestleMania. So I don't think that Flair would have changed that. He probably would have brought Rick in and taken maybe a year or so to get Rick over to take that spot with Hulk after WrestleMania.
Let me mention here, when you say to get Rick over, you mean to this new audience, obviously,
yes.
In the South and, in Florida. I mean, Flair was over in St. Louis and blah, 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 blah. But you mean to this New York audience, which is really where Vince has his finger on the pulse. You would probably need
the WWF audience. Yeah.
Yeah. So the idea being maybe WrestleMania 5 would have stayed the same. Would WrestleMania 6
Look at that. Look at that. Did you see the athleticism that was just shown there?
I did. The way he twirled that 2x4.
The way that I got out of the ring there and moved. I think I ran a 3.890 on that.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, it was.
3.890. I'm going to have to remember that. Chat me up though. WrestleMania 6. Do you think that would have been, instead of Hogan Warrior, would it have been Hogan Flair? I don't see that.
It could have been. Yeah, it definitely could have been. But again, we'll never know. And this was not the first time that Vince had negotiated with Flair either. So I think by this time, Vince was kind of getting a little
skittish.
Yeah. Because Rick would get close, and then he'd never seal the deal.
Yeah.
And that was a frustration on Vince's part.
Why do you think that was? Do you think Flair was just in a comfort zone?
Yeah, I think Rick was real comfortable. He knew the surroundings there. Jim Crockett, at that time at least, treated him well, and Rick was comfortable. It was an unknown.
We got the Honky Tonk Man coming to the ring. Before we do, I want to put a bow on that segment that we just saw. You called him Dugan, which is sort of fun. And Meltzer would write this. He says that you did a great job playing the gimmick, but it's already run its course. He also says, I don't know anyone who gets off on it, which I think is an interesting comment. And he continues, the comments I hear when Brother Love comes on, it's channel switching time. By this point in the show, I'd rather have gone to the dentist because getting teeth scraped was more entertaining. Dud, 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 dud. How much of that is him hating on Hacksaw, and how much of that is just he's always hated Bruce Pritchard?
I just goes to show his being able to read what works and what gets over and what doesn't, considering that the gimmick was on every television show for the next 3.5 years and did get over and draw money. But then again, there's your expert.
So here we go. We've got Honky Tonk Man cutting a promo, and he's going to be facing a mystery opponent. As we said earlier, Brutus the fucking Barber Beefcake can't be here because Ron Bass has mutilated him. So he's challenging anybody in the back. Just bring them on out here. And they're killing a little time, getting some shots of the crowd. And then all of a sudden, some of the most iconic music of all time hits, and look at the crowd go bananas, and Honky's freaking out. Like, what? Not him. No. And of course, the announcers are playing it dumb, like they don't know who it is, even though they hear the music and the fans know. And it's the Ultimate Warrior here, and probably his first major career highlight for the WWF. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, I would agree, definitely, because this was a big point. This was a big deal for him, and we had to keep it short because he's already just looking for any kind of air he can get. And Honky Tonk Man right there is saying that was the stiffest freaking shoulder tackle I've ever had in my life. And that was the worst clothesline probably ever thrown. And this hurts. Does he not know how to do a splash? You will notice there was no Warrior press here.
And that's because Honky refused to do it.
Goddamn right. Anybody that had ever taken it before, would refuse to do it because he didn't know how to do it. He would grab people by the balls and by the throat and try and lift them up. And Honky was like, yeah, you ain't grabbing my balls. You did that once. Ain't going to happen again.
Well, there you go. I never knew that. So that's a fun story. 31 seconds here. Ultimate Warrior, now your Intercontinental Champion. Of course, he's going to carry that to a WrestleMania, and then Rude, with a little help from Bobby Heenan, is going to take it from him. Chat me up a little bit about Meltzer's comments here, because he actually agreed with you. He says Warrior gave Honky, quote, the worst clothesline in the history of pro wrestling. And he also referred to the Warrior as the anabolic Warrior during this time period. He gave the match -half a star.
Well, it was at least short.
It's funny.
I think that's the best thing that can be said about it.
It is interesting that, we've heard the rumor and innuendo that Honky refused to drop the belt to Macho Man, but now no problem doing a 31-second squash to the Warrior. What did Vince see in a Warrior?
Oh God. I mean, well, first of all, what they envisioned for the segment is exactly what you saw. From the time that Warrior's music hit till the time that he left, that audience was on their feet going nuts. We didn't give them time to settle down and come down and watch a match or try to have a match or anything like that. You kept them up, and it was a frenetic pace. That was the vision that he had. That's exactly what they got. It worked. It worked. That's what we were looking for. Make a moment.
So there's your intermission right there, which they've obviously cut out, but we get the rejoin. At this point, are you watching the show from the gorilla position?
Oh God. At this point, I don't even know where the hell I am. I'm probably at gorilla with, yeah, as a matter of fact, at gorilla. Yep.
What's Vince think of Superstars commentary at this point?
At this point, I don't even think we could hear the commentary in Madison Square Garden. So it was, one of those, you didn't have, Madison Square Garden was different, dude. It was back in those days. You're dealing with the Garden Network people, MSG Network, and you're dealing with their equipment, their stuff. And we did have a gorilla position, but it wasn't what you think a gorilla position is now. It was just a place to send guys, and that was it. And there was one monitor there, and that's all there was. So for us, it was, if you could get a place there and see, awesome. If not, then you move on. But who knows where I was.
Here comes Don Morocco. Man, the original Rock. How jacked is he right here?
Well, Morocco, man, was, and here's the other crazy thing for Don Morocco. was such a huge, huge star in Madison Square Garden in New York back in the territory days. Don was a huge star everywhere he went. And this was during a time in Morocco's career that, he was sliding down a little bit, and he had gotten so damn big and didn't move like the Don Morocco of old. And then you add in this match to that Dino Bravo, and same thing with Dino, man. He just got to the point where it was like slow motion watching these guys go, and Don didn't have that same zip that he used to have. Yes, it's a pate, USA is not okay, and a pate. That's French.
Look at that fucking guy.
There we go. There's America.
Looks like Bruce Mitchell.
Oh,
we're not in Greensboro.
God. Yeah, jack off.
Oh my. So let's talk about finishes for a minute. We mentioned a minute ago that Honky Tonk Man, the rumor and innuendo is that he wouldn't lose to Savage, but we will lose to Warrior. Any pushback from Honky on dropping the belt to Warrior? I mean, you just said he wouldn't take a press slam, and he wanted to keep it short. I get that. He was fine with losing though, and he was okay with making it short.
Absolutely. The only pushback I remember from Honky and with Warrior was, you know what? Don't ever grab my nuts like that again. And we ain't doing that. We ain't going to do your finish. We're not going to do that press slam until you learn how to do it. I ain't taking it. And the problem was with so many guys, the enhancement talent, they were just happy to be out there and be able to do a job and get a payday. So when Warrior squeezed their nuts to oblivion, they would come back and wouldn't complain. So no one knew until he started doing the finish on top guys. And then when he did that, they were like, And that's where Rick Rude sat him down one day and showed him how to do it. Still, I think he squeezed.
I mean, maybe he was the original Joey Ryan dick flipper.
God.
Hey, so chat me up here about, I did the transition for finishes. I want to talk about the rumor and innuendo. You sort of addressed it there for Honky, but what about the Rougeaus and Bulldogs? One of the internet legends is that the Bulldogs were supposed to go over, but the Rougeaus complain and get a change to a draw. Do you remember that?
I don't. And to my knowledge, that match from day one, when we put everything together, that match was always supposed to be a 20-minute draw to start the night off. Back in the day, that's how you'd start your shows. Have the first two guys go out there and go, 10 or 15 minutes through, and then you start building the show from there. But to my knowledge, and I did the original run sheets from day one, which was the week of the show, that was always a 20-minute draw.
You ever hear a story about an enhancement talent named John Ziegler? Allegedly, he's credited with being one of the godfathers for introducing steroids to weightlifters. And he was working enhancement matches for you guys in August of this year. And the name jumped out to me. And so I thought I'd ask.
Goddamn, how old was he?
I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea. I go back to, the very little I know about steroids, and I go back to the Arnold Schwarzenegger days in Venice Beach in the 60s, and superstar Billy Graham talking about, in the 60s and how it was all introduced then. So, no, I've never heard that name at all. And Superstar was the one who really was one of the first guys that brought that look, and that came from working out with Schwarzenegger and those guys out in Venice Beach.
Was this always supposed to be sort of the blow off for the Hogan Hogan Andre stuff?
SummerSlam?
Yeah. I ask because it feels like it's dwindling a little bit. I mean, obviously you guys have gone back to the well a few times, and I know we've touched on it before when we did our Hogan 88 episode, but in August of that year, August 7th, in fact, you guys take the show to Greensboro Coliseum. Of course, NWA country in a big way. It held the Starrcade events for 83, 4, 5, and 6. and you guys have Andre and Hogan on top and you draw 3,600 fans. But you know, whenever you go say to Oakland, you're doing 10,500, you're doing 140 grand in LA. You're doing giant business in Montreal, believe it or not, with Randy wrestling Dino Bravo on top, like 300 grand. So you're getting tons of traction everywhere you go, except in the Greensboro Coliseum with Hogan and Andre. And it always sort of stuck out to me that, you know, this is a year after they drew 93,000 or whatever fabled number there is, but it's 3,600 here. How much of that is because it's NWA country, and how much of that is just because people have seen it?
I think that a lot of it had to do with probably our exposure in the market. I don't know how good our TV was there, you know, going in and running a market that people were used to watching the NWA and another product, and they had a time slot that people were used to. So, you know, that damn new gas station opened up down the street. But for Vince with Andre, I know Vince wanted to limit Andre's exposure as much as he could because there were still questions about his health. So it was.
How about the body slam and a ref bump, but he bounces right back up and a fucking.
That's Timmy White. He's resilient.
It's just funny though, that anytime somebody gets knocked over, they're dead for days. But when it happens accidentally, just pop right back up. And a damn sidewalk slam is your finish. USA is not okay. I feel like
USA is not okay.
I feel like we need to have a costume contest because this would be an easy one to do, would it not?
Absolutely.
Count me in.
USA is not okay.
Is that your new gimmick?
USA is not okay. Fetchy Bernard, Kiss Casse.
Is that the guy who taught you how to smoke weed on a plane?
Yes, it is.
Come in here, Bruce. What you do is you get down and you get into the toilet and you push the button. When all the air sucks it out, it takes the smoke. Watch this, and you keep it down there and the smoke goes away. Kiss Casse.
How about Sean Mooney sporting the tuxedo, got the Mike Cube like he likes it? I feel like we're going to see that at StarCast later today.
What the hell? I think Sean Mooney's put on a few pounds, got a little more gray though, but he looks, other than that, he looks exactly the same.
Man, how big of a star was Jesse Ventura here?
Well, Jesse Ventura at this time was our answer to, for example, any megastar that was out there. He had just done Predator and he was getting a lot of press and he was a quote movie star. Jesse liked to think of himself more as a movie star than a wrestler or a commentator, but he also knew where his bread was buttered. So Jesse was live, man, during this time. Jesse was a huge megastar, and he was the guy that was able to get out there, he and Hogan, and get out on Entertainment Tonight and get that extra press.
How about this? The Hart Foundation already in the ring. Of course, RIP to Mr. Jim Neidhart. This is the first time we've had him really on the show since he passed away. And there's Bret Hart just a few years before he's going to be a big single star. Just 3 years after this, he's going to have a classic with Mr. Perfect and become the Intercontinental Champion. Still trying to find his way here a little bit.
Yeah, but they were a classic tag team, man. The Hart Foundation were, if you were to ask, if we were to go back 30 years and look at this now, I would tell you that the Hart Foundation, those are two tag team guys. I don't think either one of them could be a single.
Man, this is good old school WWF to me. We've got Demolition coming out both with Mr. Fuji and, believe it or not, with Jimmy Hart. Of course, Jimmy Hart had recently been paired with the Hart Foundation, of course, but now they're good guys and Jimmy ain't having nothing to do with that, baby. He likes bad guys and beans and taters.
You know, that's right. And if you're ever in Jacksonville,
no, you're in Daytona Beach. You can
Daytona
go.
Beach, damn it.
I can't believe you would forget that because everybody knows about Jimmy Hart's famous bar and Tiki Deck. It's right on the water, baby. And they got cans of beer, baby. They don't have draft because you're going to have glasses down by the water. You got to have them cans. And all you got to do is come down to Daytona Beach, right there on the beach at the Mayan Inn, and ask for Jimmy Hart's famous bar and Tiki Deck. By the way, they got beans and taters. They got all kinds of wrestling photos all over the building. They even got one of Brother Love. Of course, Hulk Hogan's in it. He's contractually obligated to be in all the wrestling pictures, but who else would you want? He's the biggest star of them all. Don't forget Jimmy Hart's Famous Bar and Tiki Deck also has NFL Sunday Ticket. So if you live in, say, Texas and the game is blocked out, just hop in your car 19 hours later, boom. You're right there on the beach with your feet in the sand and a can of cold beer in your hand, eating beans and taters at Jimmy Hart's Famous Bar and Tiki Deck.
You can see it all right there, baby.
By the way, I know some of our listeners have no idea what I'm doing, but you and I recently did an event in Huntsville, Alabama, and no matter what question came from the audience. So Vince, or what do you guys think Vince thinks about New Japan selling out Madison Square Garden? Well, baby, I think they're going to be hanging from the rafters just like they are every night during Raw at Jimmy Hart's Famous Bar and Tiki Deck.
I love Jimmy.
Just the constant shill. He's the best. And I don't know anything about a constant shill. So let's talk about StarCast.
Yeah, I don't even know what you're talking about right here, because it was Animal and I got to the point where we would answer the questions with the same thing, because we thought, well, shit, somebody's paying us for this.
It's amazing. I would like to ask you a question about pay-per-view. And by the way, what we're watching right here is exactly what I remember about WWF 88. I mean, I don't remember anything about Morocco and Dino Bravo that I enjoyed, but I remember so much about Demolition and Heart Foundation, two of my favorites. And it's fun to watch it back and just sort of bathe in the nostalgia. I do want to talk to you about the pay-per-view though, because we mentioned that this was obviously one of the big pay-per-view extravaganzas, and Royal Rumble at this point has just been a television show. So this is really number 3 for pay-per-view, but Vince is going to promote a boxing match. And we almost never talk about this. It's Sugar Ray Leonard, and he's going to be in a boxing match for the WBC lightweight and super middleweight titles on November 17th. And that gets the rumor mill started in a big way that if Vince is throwing his hat into the boxing game and allegedly spending like $5 million in order to get the rights to do so, that perhaps he's eyeing a Hogan Mike Tyson extravaganza. Tell me what you know about the Sugar Ray Leonard fight and why Vince ventured into boxing, then why he didn't do more of it, and anything about these Hogan Tyson rumors you can remember.
No, the Hogan Tyson rumors were always going to be there. That just was a natural, going all the way back to Inoki and Ali. And that's exactly what they were. They were just rumors. So, whether there's any fire there to that smoke, there just wasn't, other than talk and what ifs and different things. The Donnie Lalonde and Sugar Ray fight was something that we did with Sugar Ray. Vince was looking to expand into boxing, and he had an opportunity to do it in Madison Square Garden in New York. He had an opportunity to bid on this fight. I don't think it was $5 million. I think it was closer to maybe $2 million, but I have no idea what the exact figures were. I just remember being said it was a lot less. He promoted the fight, and we did it on pay-per-view. We used our production company, our production people, and did the promotion for it. And I dare say it did really well on pay-per-view based off of all the promotion that it got through Superstars of Wrestling, Wrestling Challenge, and Primetime. So it was a big deal. I've got pictures on my wall of me and Sugar Ray in Atlantic City, promoting the fighter up in the Poconos, going through and for his training. So it was an interesting time. It was a lot of fun. We did a lot of co-promotional stuff where we had Sugar Ray and Donnie on Primetime and on our different shows. So yeah, it was something he wanted to do. Didn't stay in it because the boxing community really didn't embrace Vince McMahon in their world. Didn't want the wrestling guy in there.
And they didn't want the wrestling guy in there because of the connotation that it might be fixed. And so much of boxing is based on sports betting. And I understand. I mean, there was even a hesitation years ago. Obviously that's eased up a little bit now, but there was a hesitation years ago from people in the mixed martial arts community sort of commingling because they had that old school gambling is such a big part of our business, because the Fertittas who are in the casino business, if they had a relationship with the quote unquote fake wrestling, then it might negatively impact their business. That's before they got as big as they are and had so many other revenue streams, and it wasn't nearly as important.
That's coming from the boxing community. The upstanding never been fixed.
Sure.
Boxing community.
Silly shit. Yeah.
Yeah. But they didn't want, they didn't want the wrestling people involved in that. They certainly didn't want Vince taking it over, kind of like he had done the wrestling. And that's what they saw. There was probably more concern on Don King's part, looking at, I don't need another promoter in here dabbling in my world. So it was fear, and it did well. We got the hell out, took it and moved on. Later on, he looked at doing some stuff with, oh my God, I'm blank right now. Golden Boy, Oscar De La Hoya, many years later, but that just didn't pan out. We did a little bit, but not a lot.
Let's talk a little bit about this match. Both teams have said that they liked the match and that they both speak very highly of it. Why do you think these teams really work so well together, in your opinion?
Well, probably because it's four tough son of a bitches out there beating the shit out of each other, and they liked it. Sometimes you have chemistry with somebody, sometimes you don't. These guys had chemistry with one another. So it was the ability for the Hart Foundation to be baby faces against a heel tag team. So that helps, because the Harts had been heels up until this point, and this was an opportunity for them to be true baby faces. So it was a way to get them over.
Let's go ahead.
No, I was going to say, I always like, when you're sitting here, first of all, Barry Darso's hair, he has hair, tremendous. But it always looked like it had glitter in it. You ever notice that?
It did.
It's like, now, the fact that he's got hair, because Barry, bless his little heart, doesn't have any hair anymore.
Axe had more of this glitter shit, though, than anybody.
You think so?
Yeah, for sure. Axe was always.
I don't see it in Axe's hair.
Let me mention Jim Neidhart. We haven't talked about him a ton. Of course, we've done Bret Hart episodes. We've done a Demolition episode. Talked a little bit about the Anvil before, and I know every time we throw to him, you inevitably jump to some sort of a Stu impersonation. Do you have any other stories about Jim the man? Not just funny ha-has or, I know that's what we try to do here on the show, but if we could have you share some Jim Neidhart stories that aren't just gags and ribs, that might be good.
Well, Jim the man, he got the name the Anvil because he threw the anvil, and he was one of the strongest son of a bitches that ever walked the earth. You would try and run into Jim. It was like running into a fire hydrant. He was just that thick and deceptively strong. You look at him and you go, oh hell, there he just threw a drop kick. He was an incredible athlete, man, and very deceptively strong. I would put him up there in strength categories with Kane and even a guy like Mark Henry that was able to do shit. But he did the anvil toss and was one of the best in the world. And you kind of put him in that category of a Kerry Von Erich, who was a discus thrower. But I think people, because of his look and because of the big gut, they downplayed the athleticism of Jim Neidhart. But he was a stand-up guy and got over more than anything on his toughness. Even when he was just learning to work, and we had him in Mid-South when he was greener than fucking goose shit. He got over because he could take punishment and give it out, and it looked real. I don't think he became really a gimmick until he got to WWE.
Right.
I remember him wearing he would wear a cowboy hat. And that was his deal, just short trunks and a cowboy hat. old black cowboy hat, and that was Jim the Anvil Neidhart. Watts liked him because he was a tough guy.
Yeah, he's a big bastard and obviously very powerful. That's Watts all day.
Oh yeah. So, but Neidhart. Neidhart was Neidhart, man. He was fun. He was exactly the opposite of the perception.
Right.
But to get Jim in a bar and just sit down and have a few beers and get him laughing and get him telling stories, he was a funny, just one of the boys. Look at poor Fuji getting the living shit beaten out of him by Neidhart. There's a tough son of a bitch. Oh, bullshit. That damn megaphone. Jimmy Hart, fucking them Hart Foundations. But that, again, man, you look at the great teams, and without a doubt, man, Demolition will go down as I think probably one of those greatest tag teams ever in WWE. And here with the Hart Foundation, two of the best. What the hell is this? Who's that? Oh, that's Jimmy Hart. Look out, baby. See, Jimmy almost tripped, but he throws the megaphone, ba-boom, and we're out.
Old school stuff, man.
And Steve Taylor getting in the shot. I love it.
The old wooden stairs. Come a long way since then, huh?
My God, I hated those wooden stairs. I hated the wooden stairs because they were so damn narrow. It was like climbing up a ladder. It was like when I got in the ring at that show in Huntsville and looked over and said, how the hell am I going to get up there? But it happens.
Jimmy Hart's already in the back consulting with all the bad guys. There's Hercules, who hasn't wrestled yet, but I think everybody else in the shot has.
And the Honky Tonk Man was robbed. I didn't even get my $1 million jumpsuit off right here, baby. Mean Gene, I was robbed. That Ultimate Warrior's got my championship walking around. That makes a Honky Tonk Man awful mad. Tell him, Honky. Tell him. We're going to go right now down to Daytona Beach.
Why do you think, it's not talked about that Lawler's family is one of the most famous families in wrestling? Feels like, you hear lots of other names, but nobody really talks about Brian Lawler, Brian Christopher rather, Jerry Lawler, and the Honky Tonk Man, all the same clan, man.
Well, because none of them ever claimed any of the others. It's like, Lawler and Honky Tonk are cousins.
Oh my God. You look at the Samoans.
But there's only 3 of them, and neither one of them claims the other.
It's just interesting to me. Here's the Big Boss Man, aka Eric Rottencrotch, friend of the show. He did a cosplay as him a few years ago. I put on my Twitter feed. You got to see it if you haven't already.
I thought that was Boss Man.
I know. Looks just like him. Identical.
Especially here. Early Boss Man and Eric Rottencrotch.
Same person.
Yes.
Same person.
There's a Rosati.
This is classic WWF here. The Big Boss Man taking on Koko B. Ware. And this is not too long after Boss Man debuted here. And we know that he is going to be a favorite opponent of Hulk Hogan. Who else in the company was high on Boss Man besides Hogan?
God, I think everybody was. Once they got to work, DiBiase loved working with him. Anybody that worked with Boss Man, he was so damn easy to work with and so giving that he was a favorite of people to work with. I loved working with him. I loved going out and doing the spots with him and taking his sidewalk slam and the damn ball in the gut and all that shit.
Why do you think, or how do you think? Just talk me through the progression, because Boss Man, when he was with Crockett, was really just a heavy in the background. He didn't do shit. And now you guys have him and you're giving him a push to the moon. And that's not necessarily something that happened a lot. You usually took top guys from other areas and then made them top guys for you. But he was very much a in the background underneath guy. and now he's in a featured spot here. What did Vince see in him that nobody else did?
Well, that goes back to, you know, sitting down and talking to him and getting inside what made him tick and what his desires were. I think Boss Man in the NWA was so happy to have any kind of a spot that he was willing to do whatever it is they asked him to do. His true goal was he wanted to be a wrestler. He wanted to be in the business doing it. And he was so good at the Big Bubba gimmick that they didn't want to deviate from that. So they did what worked. You know, so it's like watching now. You see Coco Ware, and man, Coco, from the minute he stepped into the business, here's a guy that main evented in Memphis, came to Mid-South, got over in the Mid-South, which is a big man territory, got over huge, and then caught the eye of Vince McMahon and came in and took the gimmick as far as he could possibly take it there in the WWF. So it's a hell of a couple of guys in the ring right there.
No doubt. I mean, three legends: Boss Man, Coco, Hebner.
Yep. And the toughest one in there is probably the one in the white trunks.
No doubt.
White tights. Yeah.
You know, he's so tough that he would be not with the company too much longer after this. He had a situation.
He whipped Jim Troy's ass.
And allegedly it was Shawn Michaels who started it. And it just sort of, that's Coco Beware's version of events.
Well, the version from everyone else was that Jim Troy pretty much started it and kept it on and just continued it until there was nothing else that Coco could do. And it was an unfortunate situation, but you know, Vince's hands were tied. He couldn't have that. Just couldn't have two guys, you know, a wrestler beating up an office guy and an office guy being as fucked up as Troy was doing what he did. So it was a message. And I don't think that Vince even said to Coco, and because I was in the office when he talked to him on the phone when he was over there, and said, Coco, this isn't forever, but you got to go home.
Yeah. And he got other opportunities.
Yeah. And it just was, it was a sad situation.
Did you ever meet my friend Super Dave Miller?
I have.
Super Dave Miller, allegedly his sister had a relationship with Coco Beware.
Well, hell,
how about that?
Because if you're going to tell me his wife Stephanie did, I'd be like really pissed. I like me some Super Dave and Stephanie.
Wait, so if she hooked up with Coco, you're mad?
Yes, because her and Dave are so happy, and I thought you were going to tell me.
Oh, no. I meant back in the day.
Okay.
Coco was coming to the ring. I think he may or may not have been a heel when he was working down south. And, he looked at Super Dave's sister and said, I'm going to run this big black dick up your ass, girl.
Well, damn.
And that's how they met.
Really?
It's a real story, by the way.
I don't believe Coco would do that.
No, I mean, he was getting heat.
Okay. I'm not even going to touch it. I know you often try to get me to touch it, but I ain't going to touch it.
I don't even know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I don't know why that's funny to me, but it is.
You're a bad man, Conrad Thomas.
Well, I'm sorry that you see it that way, but you'd be seeing a lot better if you just use simple contacts. They're the most convenient way to renew your contact lens prescription and reorder your brand of contacts from anywhere in minutes. And guys, I actually did this. I renewed my prescription. I want to talk you through what this is too. You can actually take a 5-minute simple contacts vision test online. I did it on my phone. That's a real thing. It was reviewed by a licensed doctor, and then they got me a renewed prescription, and I was able to just reorder my contacts right then. No appointments, no waiting rooms, no more overpaying. My time has been at a premium this summer. The idea that I could do this at my desk was a huge deal for me. I mean, it really is that simple. You just need your current contacts, an internet connection, and 10 feet. Now the doctor's office is wherever you are. They've got all the brands, all the different types of lenses you'll need. And they've even got the vision test for just $20. $20 is what your exam is. Shipping, all your standard shipping, it's free. Now, I want to make this clear. This isn't a replacement for your periodic full eye health exam. You still need that occasionally. But man, this is the most convenient way to renew your prescription and just get those contacts on the way. It worked for me. It'll work for you. I love it. And they're offering a special offer here. $20 off your first order of contacts. Just go to simplecontacts.com/wrestle and enter that code wrestle at checkout. I want to give that to you again. It's simplecontacts.com/wrestle, or just put wrestle as your code at checkout and you're going to get $20 off your first order. They just show up to your house, man. It doesn't get any easier. You don't have to go to any doctors. I love it. simplecontacts.com/wrestle, or just use the promo code wrestle. You're going to save $20.
Well, you sure as hell, once you get your contacts and see Big Boss Man whoop Coco's ass. And holy cow, was Boss Man just young in the big gut. And there's poor Frankie looking Coco beat. Watch this damn sidewalk slam here. Nothing like a feather. And the big belly hanging out there, just like, that's why you keep on thinking it's Eric Rottencrotch.
Why?
Because that big belly hanging out there like that.
He's doing that DDPY now. There's less of that big belly.
Okay, well, good for him. I like it. Look at that garden. You know, the one shot that we haven't seen here that you see in every single Madison Square Garden show is the shot of the roof of the garden.
Oh yeah, you're exactly right. And that roof is iconic. They put it on a lot of marketing material now for them, like it's part of their logo and everything.
Exactly.
Oh my God. Can you imagine these guys having to pretend like they give a fuck about the Ultimate Warriors win here?
Yeah, they do. Look at Morocco. Is Morocco in a towel?
Yeah.
And David, I'm going to smile. JYD's back there. Yeah, what exactly am I supposed to be doing back here? Fuck this guy. I should be in a Continental Champion. I'm going to leave now. I'm going to be the days. I don't know what I'm doing because I go around the universe. I cannot work and my fucking shit is stiff. Yeah.
I hate that you shit on the Ultimate Warrior so much because I loved him as a kid.
Well, that's because you didn't fucking know him. You didn't have to work with him.
Man, how about the vascularity? Is there any wonder that Vince McMahon is in love with him?
Sean Mooney looks like he's enamored a little bit right there.
Sean Mooney looks like he's happy to get a check. By the way, Sean Mooney, who is now a big time badass professional broadcaster out in Tucson, Arizona. Back in these
So he wasn't a badass broadcaster here?
Nah, here's what I mean. When you go back and you watch Mooney's stuff from like when he first starts, I'm sure this is direction from Vince. He's just yelling everything. And then folks, tomorrow night at Market Square Arena, we've got King Kong Bundy taking on Coco Beware. Let's go to these words right now. And it was just everything's out of fucking 11. And now it's just a much more deliberate delivery. And speaking of deliberate delivery, here comes Jake the Snake Roberts with the bag. And man, how over was this gimmick in 88?
Fucking hell, man.
The snake in the bag. Look at that. Man, my mom, you know, so much of me watching wrestling as a kid is my parents watching with me and being like, this is fucking stupid. But my mom was like, Lord, is there a snake in that bag? I mean, this gets the casual non-wrestling fans' attention. Just that there's a giant snake in that bag. You don't even have to see it to know it's there. It really is pretty genius when you think about it.
Yeah, to think Jake didn't want to have anything to do with that damn snake. But it was really the turning point in so many ways to take that gimmick to the next level and complete Jake the Snake Roberts, man. It's it's just up the fucking snake over. Don't worry about it. It's only a snake. Our snake loving listeners are going to be pissed off for that one.
Probably.
Yeah. But then if we talked about feed the snake a rabbit, then the rabbit lovers would be pissed off at us. Are we just going to see how many people we can get pissed off at us on this one?
You are.
Oh, okay. Trust me, you've had your share pissed off at this.
No, I'm sure I have.
And,
People are pissed off at me for StarCast by now.
oh, well, hell yeah. Definitely. All the hate tweets will go there.
It's fun.
But you know what? Here's the thing. Okay. If there wasn't a StarCast, there wasn't an effort to do a StarCast, and you would have nothing to hate, you would have nothing to complain about. You wouldn't have an experience of a lifetime that is once in a lifetime experience.
No,
So,
I
you know
agree.
what?
But you know,
It is what it is.
I'm a first time promoter, so there's going to be shit that I didn't know. I don't know what I don't know, but I'm going to find out this fucking weekend. And, but they're going to let me know about it. You know, parking was tight and the cheeseburger wasn't cooked all the way. And, their room was dirty and the air conditioner quit working and all that's my fault. And the lines were crazy. And, Tony Schiavone wasn't nice. And you know, all of that is my fault.
The Tony Schiavone's not nice?
Well, I'm just saying, you know, I know that there's no pleasing everybody and there's like over 9,000 tickets sold to this thing. I'm going to get a lot of hate. I know it's coming. I'm one and done as a wrestling promoter. I'd rather just go back to being, you know, the baby face that everybody likes on the podcast and not the shit heel promoter.
When is that?
Well, they really like me on this show. I don't know if you know that or not.
No.
Yeah, they do. They don't like you because they know you're full of shit. I'm the voice of them.
They love me.
No, I'm them.
Yep.
I am them. You're the liar. You're the McMahonite.
No, the problem is that I tell the truth and I dispel all the lies that you've been fed your entire life.
Well, I don't think that's necessarily a problem. I think that's why people listen. And thankfully they're listening because we asked them, hey, you got any questions about SummerSlam 88? Fire away. I'm going to do some right here, Bruce, because I don't really want to talk about this Hercules match. Do you blame me?
No, go ahead and fire away because they're locked in a headlock, side headlock right now by Jake the Snake Roberts. And we can either talk about that or you can say, go.
Josh Kuhn wants to know, how did Slick come to the company? I always thought he was an underrated manager.
Rumor and innuendo was that he was like Rufus R. Jones' son. That is not the case. He was a manager in Kansas City and Vince got wind of him and liked him, thought he cut a great promo and brought him up for an interview. He was there before I was.
So chat me up about Warlord. This is a great question from Josh Kane. He says, we hear lots of stories about Barbarian and never hear anything about Warlord.
Warlord kind of kept to himself, was a quiet guy. There's not a whole lot of stories about him. He, especially when you have as colorful of a partner as the Barbarian, that it was just what it was, man. Terry went through and didn't really bother many people. And that's really all there is to it. Not a lot of stories because he didn't create a lot.
Billy Staggs wants to know about the relationship between Macho's household and Hogan's household here. Of course, the insinuation is that there was going to be a time that probably hasn't happened yet where Liz and Randy were having problems and she sort of confided in Linda and Hogan found himself caught in the middle. What's the relationship like with Randy and Liz, Hulk and Linda at this point?
I really don't know. You know, I assume that it was cordial and that they did things together, but also at this time, you have to remember that the boys were on the road 300 days a year. So there wasn't a whole lot of time to be social in any form that you can really relate to. So I'm sure they were cordial, knew each other, and that was probably about it at this period because for Randy and Liz, it was all work during this time.
Matthew wants to know who thought it would be a good idea to use Superstar as a color guy. I heard him on a few house shows as well on the network, and he was the shits.
He was. Vince really was looking for a spot for him. He couldn't do anything physically because of his hip and what have you. We tried him as a manager with Don Morocco, and we were just looking for a spot for him.
Dan wants to know, why did we not get Jake versus Rude here?
Not ready for it. That was a house show match.
Michael wants to know, why didn't the Mega Bucks counter the bikini with Virgil and a banana hammock?
We discussed that, and the problem was we couldn't find a banana hammock that big, so it had to be scrapped.
Horror Movie Barbecue wants to know, we all know how Randy felt, but was Liz...
Horror Movie Barbecue.
Yeah, he came to our show in Rochester.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I remember.
We all know how Randy felt, but was Elizabeth uncomfortable with her role at the end of the night? She looked nervous and uneasy.
Guys, go back and watch all of Liz's stuff. She always looked nervous and uneasy. That was her character. She's working. So obviously she did a really good job of that.
Tim wants to know, why were the Powers of Pain brought in as baby faces?
Why not?
Okay.
Because you had heel champions and in Demolition, and that's where we wanted to go eventually.
Chris wants to know, what was the relationship between Jesse and Hulk like at this time? Was this before or after their issues with the rumored wrestlers union?
Oh God, that rumored wrestlers union was so many years before that. Jesse really didn't have a relationship with much of anybody. Jesse came in, did his job, and went home. And during this time, we were doing the voiceovers in the studio. So Jesse was only around the boys at a pay-per-view, and that was it. Jesse really didn't have a relationship with Hogan at this point, or anybody else for that matter.
Ken Patera versus Bad News Brown. Who booked this shit?
Vince Pat would have booked that.
Who else was considered to beat the Honky Tonk Man besides the Ultimate Warrior?
Wow. Beefcake. Beefcake would have been a good Intercontinental Champion at that time.
Anybody else?
No, Jake didn't need it. I'm trying to think of baby faces that were in that mix. Duggan was talked about, but Duggan didn't really need it either. But the only one I really remember was Beefcake.
Michael wants to know, how would Jim Cornette describe Elizabeth's bikini?
What the fuck? A goddamn bikini. I don't even see fucking midriff or goddamn cleavage. Might as well be my grandma's fucking underpants. Goddamn bloomers, motherfucker.
Neil wants to know.
Fuck you.
Thank you. Neil wants to know.
Motherfucker.
Thank you. Was this the first time they turned the actual damn lights on in Madison Square Garden? It always looked cheap and dirty on the MSG network shows.
Trying to think. Yes. Because for WrestleMania 1, they had the regular garden lighting, and this was our TV lighting. This may have been the first time that we actually had TV lighting in there.
Jason wants to know, was Jesse Ventura's 3 count at the end a shoot not to count 3 when Randy Savage had to force his arm down?
Jesus Christ. Yeah, that was a shoot, folks.
That was Jason Fields at JFields85. Thanks for listening, buddy. Work, smile, humble. The WWF Superstars arcade game was heavily based off of SummerSlam 88. Have you ever played it, and do you have any memories of the boys playing it?
What was the question again?
It's about the old Superstars arcade game, which I fucking love.
Okay, not the pinball game.
No,
I played the pinball games, and I played. Yeah, I did play that.
Of course you did. And you're actually going to be playing in the video game tournament that we've got going down at StarCast. If you haven't already, check it out at starcast.com. You can actually donate to St. Jude's. Bruce is going to be playing for charity, and he's playing the brand new PlayStation 4 game, Fire Pro Wrestling World, which is obviously a super new game that just came out. And you're in there with a bunch of other wrestling personalities, and we auctioned off a spot to play in that tournament. And man, it's a who's who in this thing. Sean Waltman's going to be joining you. Ron Funches, Matthew from Botchamania, Noel Foley. We've got the Bears, both Barry and Bernard, and your boy from MLW, former WWE superstar Simon Grimm, will all be participating in the video game tournament. So way back in the day, did you play this Superstars arcade game? Remember any of the boys talking about it?
Yeah, we had one in the office, so I played it often, as a matter of fact. Wasn't any good at it, but definitely played it. I sure as hell didn't play with that damn snake rolling around there, man. Ugh. Still creeps me out. I'm not a snake person.
How about the finish here?
Bro, perfect. Smooth as silk.
Look at the crowd pop for the DDT. That DDT was over like hell, man.
And now they use it as a high spot and get right up from it.
But man, when he hit it there, the whole crowd went banana.
Exactly, because they knew. They knew the end was near. They knew they were going to see Damien. Yeah. Snake put Damien down my pants one night in the ring.
How about this flashback here? What an old school graphic that is.
Right, take you, Savage, choke you like dog shit. Right, that's so. Choke in my hand. That's right. Yeah.
One of the things that stuck out to me on these old flashbacks when we watch it back now is they blur out the word wrestling on Superstars of Wrestling. How crazy is that?
Really?
Yeah.
That's weird.
It is weird.
So they blurred out on Challenge too?
If the word wrestling is in it, it's out.
That's cray. I love Bobby Heenan just gets like one cheap shot in there.
How would you describe? Oh, look at this goof. Your boy.
Craig Minervini, the one that was that wouldn't come to our show in Fort Lauderdale.
Yeah, he big leagued us.
Oh, okay. Wow. There he is. He was probably 12 at that time.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah, something like that.
I got a joke, but I'm going to keep it to myself. Let's talk about some more questions here. Defense wants to know, why was there a need for a special referee?
Because the match it was mega. There was mega powers and mega bucks. You need a mega ref. It wasn't the Bucks against the powers. It was the mega bucks against the mega powers. So you needed mega referee.
Why did Hogan have to win every match and always be in the main event?
Because he drew the most money.
Nope. Try again.
That's why.
No. One more.
Well, it's very simple, Conrad. He drew the most money and people wanted to see him pose. Therefore, Hogan must pose.
Thank you. We got there. Aaron Carollo wants to know, what would it sound like if Hakushi cut a Mega Powers promo with Savage instead of Hulk Hogan?
These questions are way too long. What?
Hakushi's going to cut a Mega Powers promo with Savage instead of Hulk Hogan.
Hakushi didn't talk.
Okay. You know what he means. He means Shinja.
Are we talking about Sato?
He means Shinja.
Oh. And he's talking about.
Never mind. Goddamn.
This would be a bullshit. These are questions. A bullshit. You must say, have Sato do the fucking thing because your question. I had to tell you, JJ. There's Brother Love. There's Brother Love. There's Brother Love. And they had Wrestling Challenge on there.
Talk to me about this SummerSlam. Do you remember what day of the week it was held on?
It was on a Monday, I think.
That's my question. Why?
Well, because it was Monday night in the Garden. What the fuck? Well, why not? There was no rhyme or reason to it. It was, we ran the Garden on Monday nights. And I think that probably had more to do with it than anything.
You know how dumb that answer is though, right?
Why?
Was WrestleMania on a Monday night?
No, but it was.
But it was in the Garden. I mean, duh.
No,
you run the Garden on Monday night.
The Garden was probably booked, and Vince wanted to run it in the Garden, and just said, "Fuck it, we'll do it on Monday night." Sunday didn't become the pay-per-view day for another couple of years.
Not arguing that. Ed wants to know, where does this SummerSlam rank amongst all-time SummerSlams?
Well, it's the original. So for me, it's up there, and it was great because I was on it.
You know,
Top five.
seems like a silly question, but we got it 3 or 4 times. Did Macho Man have a problem with Elizabeth touching Hulk Hogan's chest for the poster?
Well, why? Where do these? I don't know what kind of thought process goes through people's minds on things like that, folks. We're in the entertainment business. We're in a physical entertainment business too. So you touch people. If you got a problem with that, don't be in the business.
Matt wants to know, can we pass on this and hear about Patreon and StarCast for 100% of the show instead of 80? Thanks. I'm actually fine with that. If we just want to ignore what's going on with the rest of the show and just talk about Patreon, because you get so much extra content over at patreon.com/something to wrestle. And it's only like $9. And StarCast now, I don't know if you heard Bruce, you get daily passes, just $20 gets you in. You got to check this out. StarCast on Fight is the place to be this Labor Day weekend. Fight.tv/StarCast. I'm sure you have more comments and thoughts about Patreon and StarCast. We want to make sure Matt's happy here.
Well, I do, because I spent probably about an hour just doing extra video stuff the other day that'll be sprinkled out all weekend long. So it's the only place to get exclusive when I'm just pondering and get my thoughts from deep within. That's inside. Yeah. So that's the place to get it, because it's exclusive to Patreon members. Kind of like Jesse Ventura coming out in that hot ass leather fucking jacket
In August.
Yes.
Hey, so how about the kid in the front row who had the super legit macho cosplay going?
Freak out. Oh yeah. Gotta love it. Jesse doesn't keep this thing on the whole time, does he?
Well, you're going to find out, aren't you?
Yeah, we are.
Dave wants to know, what sound did Andre make in the ring when Elizabeth unveiled the secret weapon? Dr. Delicious, this is the hard-hitting stuff we need here. Any truth to the rumor that Virgil was going to be given a run with the world title after this pay-per-view, or was he just one of those guys that didn't need it? #meat sauce.
Oh yeah, we were going to have Virgil just actually in this particular matchup. We were going to have him beat Andre DiBiase and then do the old flapjack on Hogan and Savage. He was going to pile them up and beat them together.
I mean, it makes sense. So you open the pay-per-view with him.
This is true. Oh, I shit on you. You know, Andre was giant.
Really? Was he?
Yeah. Yeah, he was.
I don't know that I knew that. I appreciate you telling us that.
Yeah. And as Bobby Heenan said, he didn't sweat, he molted.
That's fucking funny. So
Jesse took the jacket off.
Jake Roberts, I should mention, his match with Hercules got 1.25 stars. And here comes your main event. And how about this iconic look? The yellow and red with the mega powers.
Yep, passing the grill position. As you saw, there were just the two monitors. There's Jim Troy in the entryway there. That was the follow, man. If the director at Madison Square Garden could have used that for every entrance, he would have.
Why did he like it so much?
I don't know. I guess taking people backstage, just give them a peek behind the curtain.
I like it. It makes it special. I dig it.
I love that Mega Powers cape that Savage has.
I do too. But I love the trunks. I love the Hulk Rules shirt. I mean, this is what I grew up on. This is my favorite look for these guys.
Red and yellow, yellow and red. Freak out. Yeah. Here we go.
As I mentioned, Jake and Herc got 1 star and 1/4. Boss Man and Coco Ware got 1 star and 3/4. What we're about to see here, believe it or not, gets 2 3/4.
Well, that's just stupid.
Why?
Was Liz not the most beautiful valet that there ever was?
No, Sonny was.
No,
You're wrong.
no, Liz was.
How about the Velcro on Macho Man's world title right there? He's taking the snaps off of that Reggie Parks belt, and now he's got Velcro.
Easy access, brother. Yeah. First name macho, last name man. Check out the mega powers.
How about the tuxedo shirt? Got the Tony Clifton look rocking here.
I see. I was gonna go with the Jerry Seinfeld puffy shirt.
Yeah, the pirate shirt.
Yeah, the pirate shirt. Yeah, the puffy shirt. And Heenan actually pulling out. You know, this is during a time that Bobby was trying to go to easier to carry wear, but for pay-per-views he'd break out the nice sport coats. Jesse actually wants to be a good referee here.
Lots of questions about why he was the guest referee. It's because he had so much damn star power at the time.
That was it, man. And this was the summer of Predator.
Really?
Ain't got time to bleed. Yeah, I think it was. If it wasn't Predator, it was Running Man. But he had a big movie out this summer, so that was one of the reasons to capitalize on that with him. Big star. Uh-oh, what the hell's happening here?
Checking the turnbuckle. What's going on?
Oh, he had to move
the tag
to the other
ropes.
corner.
There you go. He's being super legit, taking his time.
Well, you got to get your time in, brother.
Meltzer.
Well, whoever put the fucking tag rope, they put the tag ropes in the wrong corner. Oh, see, you know what? Hey, we got to go back to that question. Looks like there's some legitimate heat there between Jesse and Hogan. That's why Jesse changed ropes, just to piss Hogan off for this match from that heat way back when.
Let me ask you here. Meltzer called this, quote, the most forgettable event in the brief history of pay-per-view wrestling. Your thoughts?
Fuck him. He's an idiot.
Meltzer speculating that the pay-per-view is purchased by about 450,000 homes on pay-per-view and going to gross somewhere between $7 and $8 million, which would have meant a boatload of cash for the WWF. Of course, the WWF claims 880,000 homes and $11 million. What say you? Was this considered a huge success internally?
It was considered a huge success internally. Yes, very much so. Everybody was happy with it.
Around this same time, your boy, Ron Trongard, who was an AWA announcer, came to the WWF briefly. Didn't last very long. What's up with that?
Well, Rod had that great radio and announcer voice. I'm Rod Trongard. Vince loved his voice. He had a face for radio. He was an older gentleman, really super nice guy, but his time had passed and he wasn't really able to keep up the pace. He wasn't able to do all the traveling that was required. Rod had been a mainstay for Vern Gagne in the AWA and never really had to travel the way that we needed him to travel. And it just took his toll on him. And he was also sick. He had cancer. And that was it.
We should mention here that a couple of weeks after this, Arn and Tully quit the NWA and immediately dropped the tag titles to the Midnight Express on a house show in Philadelphia. And they come to the WWF right after. And it's not too terribly long after that, we see Ted Turner buy out Jim Crockett Promotions. What do you remember about Arn and Tully coming in?
Man, just that, the Crockett was having issues, and best of my recollection was that it was money issues that they looked to come into greener pastures. So everybody was happy about, Arn and Tully coming in. I thought it was a good deal for them to come in. I remember when Ted Turner purchased the NWA, calling Vince like, "Hey Vince, I'm in the wrestling business now. I just bought me a wrestling company." And Vince congratulated him and said, "We're in the entertainment business, Ted. Good luck to you." That was it.
What's Andre's physical position or condition like at this time?
I think Andre would argue and tell you he was fine, but it was deteriorating. he wanted to work more, but you could tell he just couldn't do a whole lot of things, man. He couldn't do more. So, and when I say Andre wanted to work more, what Andre really wanted was to be on the road.
Right.
Andre just wanted to be out. He wanted to be around the boys, and he wanted to be moving. But as you see, you know, Ted's in there for the purpose of working, and the boss was there to be a giant, come in and choke somebody when he needed to.
You got three really good working shape dudes here, though. DiBiase and Savage have become very familiar with each other, both regarded as being two of the tops. Obviously, Hogan knows how to pull his own weight. So really, you don't have that much to sort of cover up.
No, you don't. And it was by design. You also had on the outside for distractions and things to do. You had Heenan and Virgil and of course Elizabeth. So this wasn't looking to have, you know, whatever you want to call your 18-star match, what have you. This was a story. This was about building the relationship between Hulk Hogan and the Macho Man, and telling the story, you know, of Andre and Hogan, and continuing that along. So this was to start that underneath shit to get us to WrestleMania. So as you'll see here at the end, and it was all nuances. So yeah, it's about telling stories, and you have to start somewhere, and this was a start. When you look at the totality of everything, that's why I get upset with people. It's like, okay, you didn't like that. You'll understand it when we get to the very end of the story, and you'll understand why we did certain things that we did. And Andre did this well. He liked to choke. Roar. I hold on to trapezius. I stand here. And Hogan sold. And Jesse reffed.
You know, what's funny is this really doesn't age well, but at the time, people were into it unless you were Dave Meltzer.
Yeah, people were into it. I mean, this was the biggest story, and the Garden's going nuts. And Hulk is, I mean, he is the biggest star in the business. And a simple spot, you know, Andre choking Hogan. And the funny part about it is Andre is choking the living fuck out of him right now with his shoulder strap.
Yeah, for real.
Yes, for real.
Yeah.
And laughing about it. So, but you have the four biggest stars in the company right now in a tag team match. And it was, you know, this was all new with SummerSlam, and this was an experiment, and one that obviously worked out well, so that we're still having SummerSlam today. Got to start somewhere, people.
This is one of the
slow 2 count.
So yeah, I mean, he's a heel. He's a heel.
Well, that's why it was Hogan down. He should have counted faster. So watch.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Overall, you know, WrestleMania is still the number one show. When you guys are done with this, do you think that Survivor Series is still the number 2 show, or has SummerSlam replaced it?
Tell you what, SummerSlam, the feeling coming off of this was that we have to do it again. I think in our minds still, because Survivor was first, that Survivor was probably the second most important, you know, big show on pay-per-view. Again, we only had 3 at this point, but still it was considered that Survivor was still the, you know, the important one. Not that they all weren't important.
As far as the agents at the time, you know, Pat, who else would have been an agent at the time?
Lanza, Strongbow, Goulet, Gurria. Didn't have Jim Myers yet, but those were the main ones. Yeah. Dave Hebner was an agent, but mainly, Lanza, Strongbow were the two main agents.
Adam wants to know, is the opening match with the Bulldogs and Rougeaus not one of the best quote unquote curtain jerker matches ever?
I thought it was very good.
I thought so too.
Yeah, definitely. It's not, and I hate that term curtain jerker. It's a way, it's how you start your show.
Right.
You either start it in a good way, or if it's a curtain jerker match, to me, that's a negative connotation and it's a shitty match. I don't think it was a shitty match. And we tried to open up with damn good matches.
Francis wants to know, who came up with the SummerSlam poster?
Probably the art department, but Vince with Hogan and Savage on there with Liz.
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember seeing that very, very early on. And I remember that was one of those instances of Vince being so particular about the color of blue. And I'm thinking, it's blue. It's a light, it's kind of a light blue. No, I want that royal blue. I want this, a shade different, and looked at all these different shades. And I was amazed at the attention to detail that he had on what I had considered at the time, little things, but they were big to him. Up top, freak out, double X count, bitch. Not gonna cover him yet. Cause I'm not done.
Ryan wants to know, with this being JYD's last pay-per-view for the WWF, what did you think of his run there overall, and why did he leave?
I thought JYD had a good run, and JYD was just, ready to move on. I think that at the time, Crockett was looking for Dog and wanted Dog to come in. And I think guys always feel that the grass is greener on the other side. But I thought his run, he had a good run.
Michael wants to know, how far out was it planned that Honky Tonk Man would lose the Intercontinental title to Warrior? Was it discussed right after WrestleMania 4?
No, it was not discussed after WrestleMania 4. I don't think that was really discussed until the middle of the summer. And I don't know when. I can't pinpoint exactly when it was. I never heard about it till middle of the summer.
Jeremy wants to know, is it safe to say that Hogan and Savage was the Rock and Austin of the 80s?
Well, I think people would say that Rock and Austin were the Hogan and Savage.
Every now and again, somebody will ask the stupidest fucking question, but I still want to read it. Can I give you the dumbest?
Of course you do. You're tickled. Look at you. You're tickled. You're fucking giggling again.
Jareth writes, did Hogan shave his dong? Did Hogan shave his dong in the late 80s? Rumor and innuendo would lead you to believe that he kept it all natural, according to Meltzer in the dirt sheets. Meltzer would write, Hogan is gone.
What is wrong with you?
Why are people?
I will never understand your fascination with
I'm
other
reading
men's
a
dongs.
question. It's hilarious to me that somebody would ask that. It's almost as hilarious as our ad read last week, which, by the way, got over in a big way. Is that the most hilarious ad we've ever done? Do you think? I mean,
yeah, that could be. And I have gotten so much response from people that I didn't even know listened to the show,
who are interested in stretching a little bit, using a little gradual tension.
Well, that's what I said. I said, it's interesting. That's the one thing you bring up out of all the things I've ever said on the show and done on the show, that this you bring up.
I didn't even know you were a listener, but now I know that you need a little stretching action.
Exactly. You said you liked it.
I mean, yeah, I'll never forget. You told me you'd been using it for years, so I had to try it.
Well, I haven't, but I imagine it's all good. And hulking up, by God, because ain't nobody can sell like the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
What a great camera angle that is. I love that. I feel like it was only used in No Holds Barred and right there.
Really, I hate it.
I love it.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. I like the I just like a different version of it. I don't
want to look at it straight like this. I want to see it from the angle over a pole. I don't know why, but I think just because it's different. Like that right there, I love that angle. Like if I was in the crowd, that'd be a great seat to have.
But at home on television, you don't want to be in the crowd.
I kind of do.
Well, then go be in the crowd.
But it's in New York and I'm 7.
Well, tell mom and dad to get off the couch and take you to New York.
How many times did your parents take you to New York for wrestling when you were 7?
Well, 3.
That's 3 more than mine. 3
Okay.
more than mine.
Well, those headbutts hurt. Hogan hated when he grabbed his hair like that.
Cause he's got so little left. It's coming out.
Well, yeah. That's why you should go to forhims.com.
Oh my God. They're not even a sponsor this week.
Oh, well, still, we'll give him a cheap plug.
But you didn't say.
Now, look at the attention to detail. You see the rug on the outside of the ring. It's still there when they're out there selling. And my rug is still just bundled up on the side of the ring. They didn't even move it. And you think, and you look at those things now and go, oh my God, but that's how we learned. Uh-oh, there's the weasel. Weasel's up. Liz is on the apron. Is this her secret weapon? Everybody's looking.
By the way, I should mention this segment of the show.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Oh my God! Still to this day, it gets me.
Nobody needs Zynga Pro now.
Oh, hell no. Look at that. Itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow. Wait a minute. It's red and yellow and there's no polka dots and it's not even a bikini.
Yeah, it's not a bikini. It's not yellow. There are no polka dots. And the baby faces are using a girl flashing herself as a distraction.
Worked. And they're shaking hands on the outside of the ring.
The big, stupid handshake, which is awesome, but dumb. And here they come.
Uh-huh.
And she threw her skirt in his face like a heel. Everything about Hogan in this era is like subtle heel, but still a baby face. Here comes the body slam. Now the big elbow drop.
Not before I point. Uh-huh. There you go. Drop that leg, bitch. Uh-huh.
And this is the shoot right here.
This is a shoe right here. Jesse didn't want to do it.
Savage said, yeah, you're gonna do it. You're gonna count to 3 because that's what we do. Uh-huh.
And here's the spot we talked about recently where Liz comes in, tries to get Macha's attention, patting him on the back once, twice. He sort of shoos her away. Get out of here. So she goes over to celebrate with Hogan. Hogan's got nothing but love for her. Picks her up, twirls her around. And now you see a shot of Macho Man seeing what's going on here as Hogan's holding her up, and he sees what's going on and comes back, puts his arms out like, what the hell?
And she gives him a hug. That's right, brother.
And Hogan, oblivious, shakes his hand, raises his arm, but now Hogan's spinning her skirt around his head.
Yeah. Wait a minute. That costs a lot of money. Can we get the skirt back, brother? Can put it into a different outfit. Uh-huh.
It's amazing.
Macho's gonna pose. Oh, yeah. I think I'll pose too here in a minute, brother.
So they're happy again. They're mega powers. Nothing can divide the mega powers.
Well, there you go, man. I'm pretty excited about, SummerSlam 1988. Obviously the very first SummerSlam, a very important show in company history and one of my earliest wrestling memories. Overall, you're going to say this is top 5 SummerSlams?
Yep. I am, because it was the first. It was the first. It's memorable and it set the stage for the rest. And it started the beginning of one of the greatest stories ever told.
We've covered it to death, and this show was a missing link. And of course we covered it most recently here today because we're right upon the 30-year anniversary, which is clearly a very, very big deal.
30 years.
Yeah. It's crazy.
Wait a minute. I was 25. That would make me 35.
Yeah. If you were 25 then, you add 30 to that and you're 35 now. That makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
And your kids, they're both 19. So you had them when you were a sophomore in high school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What I thought.
But yet you still ache and creep and crack. And he went to work for Vince McMahon here as a Ute.
Is a young Ute. He's a 24-year-old kid, by God.
If you haven't already, go check us out on Patreon. We're going to have some bonus content for you, some behind the scenes action from StarCast. And
there's a hand on the ass.
There it was. We've also got lots of interesting things like on Thursday, Bruce, which was last night, and it's still up there on Twitch. We had footage of PCO's live exhibition from the Twitch stream. You can check it out at twitch.tv/StarCast. And you can pre-order the rest of the days or just go ahead and pick up yesterday on a day pass right now at fight.tv/StarCast. Bruce, that's going to do it for me, man. I'm looking forward to getting to hang out with you, and hopefully we're still on speaking terms after the roast later today.
No guarantees.
But there is
I
a
may
guarantee.
just be cowboy.
Well, 50-50 at best. I don't know why I'm doing math, because apparently Scott Steiner's looking for me and he's doing math that he's going to bitch slap me. So this might be the last Something to Wrestle. I hope it's not. And if it's not, we'll be back right here next week on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Pritchard.